Carrie. Kelly? All right. All right. We will call to order the regular meeting of the City Commission for Tuesday, January 26th. If you would, please silence your cell phones. And City Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Mayor On.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stacks.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Clody. Here. Commissioner McGirt.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We will begin with an invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would join me in standing for those items, the Police Department Chaplain will give the invocation.
Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for allowing for us all with your divine hand that we're all here in this location tonight in this beautiful city, New Smyrna Beach. Lord, we pray that you would continue to bless our country, bless our state and this county. Lord, and especially the city, pray that you would put your hedge of protection around all these commissioners here today, all these folks that stepped up to govern and accept the challenge, Lord. We pray that you'd give them the wisdom and discernment, knowledge and disposition to faithfully carry out those duties, Lord. And special blessing tonight on all my brothers and sisters in blue here tonight, that you would put your hedge of protection around them and get them home safely. I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. To the agenda tonight.
Yes, sir. One change is we're adding one item to under administrative items, new business, 7F, pension board composition amendment.
Okay, so we got 7F. All right. If no other changes, we have some proclamations tonight. Come out here. First up, we have a proclamation honoring law enforcement officers. I'd ask if Police Chief Coughlin would join me, and Sheriff Chitwood is here as well if he would join me. County Council Member Danny Robbins is here if he would join me. And also if I could have Corporal Ralph Huntefield, Sergeant Josh Holloway, Officer David McAllister, Officer Margaret Deal, Tristan Ingram, Officer Logan Dunbar, Officer Christopher Beatty, Officer Jordan Ishikawa, Officer Jonathan Jones, and Volusia Sergeant Austin Hairston, and Deputy Brady Bergeron. If all those folks can join me here for this proclamation. All right. I don't want to be in front of you guys. Yeah. Okay, so tonight is an honoring of the bravery of these fine folks, but really all the others that are here in this room joining us tonight. And this proclamation says, whereas we are grateful for the daily sacrifices made by all law enforcement officers who have answered the call to duty, selflessly sacrificing to serve our community and protect the rights of our citizens. And whereas a dangerous pursuit of a felon began in Port Orange and ultimately ended in New Smyrna Beach on Saturday, November 21st, 2020. During the course of this pursuit, numerous citizens' lives were placed in danger. In recognition of the dire circumstances, New Smyrna Beach and Volusia Sheriff's law enforcement officers risked their lives to protect innocent citizens. In the course of the attempted arrest, New Smyrna Beach Police Corporal Ralph Hunfield was wounded when the suspect fired indiscriminately at police. And whereas the quick, decisive action of numerous law enforcement officers that you see here before you tonight ran towards danger and towards the sound of gunshots, and that doubtless saved innocent lives of New Smyrna Beach residents. And also the trust, communication, and collaboration between all local law enforcement agencies involved was displayed during this event was exemplary. Their loyalty, devotion to protect our peace and security should never be taken for granted. Now, therefore, I, Russ Owen, Mayor of the City of New Smyrna Beach, ask that all our elected officials our staff, and our citizens join me in expressing our most sincere gratitude to these law enforcement officers before you tonight. With that, I believe, Sheriff, if you want to say a few words.
I'll defer.
You'll defer?
We got a lot of business to do.
We got a lot of business to do. We got Chief Coffin. Anything to say?
Just one thing real quick. As Chief of Police, very, very proud of my staff here. These guys that go out here and do this job every single day, not knowing whether or not they're going to do a routine traffic stop that turns out okay, or end up in a situation like this where all their training and their bravery comes to the forefront. That's what police work is all about. I want to take a minute to thank the sheriff and his staff, many of who are here today. In the proclamation, it mentions collaboration. It's actually a partnership. We can't do this by ourselves, and we couldn't have any better partners than the Volusia Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Chitwood and his staff. They all came out that afternoon and evening, worked throughout the night, and did everything they could to support us as a small law enforcement agency. So on behalf of myself and the rest of the agency, thank you, Sheriff, and particularly to the staff. Thank you.
Now I have to say something. And what I want the residents of New Smyrna Beach to know is you have one hell of a police department here. And if you didn't know it, watch that body camera footage and watch the way these men and women interacted along with Deputy Bergeron and Sergeant COVID-19 did it to me. Sorry, Sarge. Just to watch how everybody worked methodically to take care of an extremely dangerous and deadly situation. You should really be proud of your police department and your chief.
Thank you, guys. I can't tell you how extremely proud I am, just as the councilman here in District 3, to work alongside some of the greatest men and women here in Volusia County, our law enforcement, our fire and EMS agencies. But day in, day out, they risk it all. And not a lot of folks know exactly what they go through. And just to throw it out there, politicians, you'll hear it. I became one back in August. But servant leadership. Take a look at these men and women right here. This is the definition of servant leadership. But the New Smyrna Beach Police Department, Volusia County Sheriff's Office consistently leads our community with above and beyond dedication in every aspect. I can't stress that enough. Every aspect with customer service to our citizens that is second to none. I can't tell you guys how proud I am of you guys, and we're here for you. We love you. Anything we could do for you, let us know. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
All right. I have a copy of this for you. I have a copy of this for your departments. If my commissioner would join me, and we have some New Smyrna Beach coins we wanted to give each of you. Also have a copy of the proclamation for each of you, for your families. And I want to grab some pictures after this as well. And Phil will direct us where to go here. Copy that.
Uniformed officers in 2 rows. We'll have county officials on this side and city officials on this side over here.
All right. So Chipwood, Robin, we'll go here. We'll go here. You guys here. Right here if you would.
Staggered so your heads are in between each other. Perfect.
We're doing it. All right. So we're going over here.
You got him? Okay. We're going to take 2. On 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Jason, you weren't smiling.
I know. I can tell you that.
Yeah, hang on, sir. Commissioner. One more picture. You want Phil to grab this shot, or you got somebody here? Yeah. All right. Again, thank you all. Hey. Mr. Harrell. We have two other proclamations here tonight, also extremely important and impactful in our city's history. And first, we'll want to do this one first. Joining me today is Mr. Harrell. And if you don't know Mr. Harrell, you're missing out. He's a legend in New Smyrna Beach. I'd start listing his accomplishments, but we'd never go home tonight. So, done many amazing things. The 2019 Citizen of the Year, first ever to win that award in New Smyrna Beach, is what I know him for. So with that, we have two proclamations today. One is in recognition of Black History Month in New Smyrna Beach. It says, whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas in 1950, Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, noted black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week, February 12, 1926, and for many years, the second week of February, chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. And whereas in 1976, as part of the National Bicentennial Black History Week, this was expanded and became established as Black History Month, and that is now celebrated all over North America and indeed right here in New Smyrna Beach. And whereas the entire month serves as an occasion to rediscover the endearing stories of African Americans and the gifts of freedom, purpose, and opportunity they have bestowed on future generations. And it's also time to commemorate the countless contributions, many of whom lived through and surmounted the scourge of segregation, racial prejudice, and discrimination. And they went on to enrich every fiber of American life. Now, therefore, I, Russ Owen, Mayor of the City of New Smyrna, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2021 as National Black History Month. And I call upon all public officials, educators, local business owners, librarians, and indeed all citizens of the City of New Smyrna to observe this month with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies. And in concert with that, and it's just passed, but it's definitely worth recognizing, is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I was saddened that this year we weren't able to do the routine events and ceremonies that we have. I can tell you I've been talking with some city leaders, and we're thinking about some even bigger things for next year. Dr. Martin Luther King, and I think it says it in here, but it's a day of service. It's honored as a day of service. So the only federal holiday is a day of service. So hopefully we can pull that in future years as we celebrate. It says, whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, social justice, opportunity for all, and challenged all Americans to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. And whereas Dr. King's teachings can continue to guide and inspire us in addressing challenges in our communities. And whereas the King Holiday and Service Act, enacted in 1994, designated the King Holiday as a national day of volunteer service and charged the Corporation for National and Community Service with leading this effort. And since 1994, millions of Americans have been inspired by the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to serve their neighbors and communities on the King Holiday. And whereas serving on the King Holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, to meet local and national needs, bring our citizens together, and strengthen our communities and nation. Whereas it is the only federal holiday commemorated as a national day of service and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday and make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. Whereas the King Day of Service projects are being organized by a wide range of nonprofit and community organizations, educational institutions, private businesses, and other organizations across the nation. Whereas each of us can and must contribute to making our communities better with increased opportunities for all our citizens. Now, therefore, I, Russ Owen, proclaim Martin Luther King Jr. holiday as a day of service in New Smyrna Beach and call upon the people of New Smyrna to pay tribute to the life and works of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. through participation in community service projects throughout the year. Dr. Hill, I'm proud to present these to you for all of your great work in this community along these lines and certainly honoring Black history with the museum. You want to share? We didn't talk beforehand, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you want to share any words about the museum and your efforts?
I just want to say thank you to Nat Owens and all the elected officials of New Smyrna Beach. It's an honor for me to accept these proclamations on behalf of all of the people of New Smyrna Beach.
Thank you, Mr.
sir.
Harrell. Thank you. Good to see you. Okay. I believe that is all the announcements and proclamations. Next up is your chance, public participation. This is for your opportunity to address the commission. You'll have 3 minutes. I ask you to be respectful of your fellow audience members and citizens' time and honoring that 3-minute timer over there. And this is your chance to speak to us on any items on the agenda that are not under a second reading or public hearing. So any of those items you'll speak to at that time, but anything on the consent agenda, administrative items, etc., you would speak to those items now. And it should be noted that if you're here to speak for or against item 8A, which is an item related to Hidden Lakes, this item was continued from the January 12th meeting. If you're here to speak for or against it, now is the time to do that. The public hearing was closed on January 12th, so the City Commission will continue that item where that was left off. So that, although it's under public hearings, the public hearing is technically closed. So if you wanted to speak to that, now is the time to do so. But I will tell you, we'll be bound only to the evidence that we heard entered into the record at that time. So with that explanation of public participation, now is your chance. If you would like to speak, come forward, please. You come right up here to this mic. Come ahead. Don't be shy. If you want to go after him, feel free to make your way all the way down to the front here and then just step right up after he's finished. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners.
Give your name and address for the record also. I forgot to mention.
And Chief, my name is Doug Davis. I live at 221 Columbus Avenue, and I wanted to speak about what's on the agenda as far as the city to buy the property at 214 Columbus Avenue. I have not had the opportunity to even discuss this with anybody as far as site plans or anything else about this purchase until recently. This will greatly impact myself and my wife and our neighbors who live on Columbus Avenue. It makes no financial sense at all to me to buy a piece of property that might accommodate another 12 to 15 vehicles. That's all I can see it can do. And as far as the discussion about adding more parking for the Civic Center, in order to do that, you have to tear down the concrete wall that leads from that area back into this lot. On top of that, this property has a beautiful historical oak tree right in the center of the property in the front. It has a house there that has been vacant now for several years. It's totally run down. The backyard, I had a chance to show it to Commissioner Colati yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before. The backyard is just high of weeds and rats and has all kinds of snakes there in very poor shape. But then on top of buying the property, you'd have to really tear down the home there as well. And on top of that, let's say if you can't even accommodate 15 vehicles there, I walk my dog through that area all the time, and I can tell you that a lot of the people that do go there and park in that area are not local people, and especially on the weekends. In fact, during the week, the whole parking area there is pretty well vacant, except for maybe sometimes on Friday evening and on the weekends. But so you're not really doing much at all to help the citizens of our community by doing that. It's a lot of money, I feel, to spend for that little small piece of property. I feel the best option overall is to let the church sell a property to a private investor. It has the potential to be rental income or Airbnb, that type of thing. And then it's the best thing too for the residents on Columbus Avenue not to have the additional noise and the additional traffic. We get enough traffic now already on Columbus Avenue. And it's the best thing for the city for the money you're spending. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Tom Murphy, 220 Columbus Avenue. So I just want to reiterate, this came as a surprise to myself, who is actually the property next to the property in question. And although it's true it's not maintained, it's been empty, and it's kind of an eyesore and multiple code violations as far as vehicles parked there and so forth. To take it down, it's the only buffer that we have there. We live there full time. I have an 11-year-old daughter. So it's a concern for us. It's a quality of life. It's going to be depreciation of our property for sure. And the traffic is immense, and it's not for it's not for locals. It's people coming from out of town that are going to park there. We have, when the church rents out that, they charge parking on their front lawn, on wine walks and so forth, and there's always, they get their money, they leave, and when the event is over at 10, 11 o'clock at night, that's when the issues are. There's people urinating in our bushes. It's just, Mr. Colati was nice enough to come by on Monday. I think he will attest that there was no less than 6 empty beer bottles there on the lawn. I maintain most of their property for them. I've been out of town. So we strongly suggest that at least $400,000 that would be spent on with no economic return at all would be much better placed at. There's, for instance, on Cooper and Flagler, there's a building for sale there with over 60 spots that you could pave and charge parking, and it's right in the middle of the city district. So for us, being that it was such short notice, I've looked and I haven't seen economic impact statements, I haven't seen engineer reports, I haven't seen models for traffic, none of that, which is all required by both the county and the city, by your own ordinances. And I would just say that we could circle back, have the community, there's 4 houses on that street. I have letters, every one of us is opposed to it. We all live here, full time. The 2 houses that don't are owned by the church. One has tithe act wrapped around it, of code violation for months. And the one next to me, obviously, you just have to drive by. We implore that there's no economic value to it. It's probably one of the second busiest spots on the weekend for traffic, and to add more traffic to it doesn't make sense. Even if it's only 10. I don't see 10 spots, because you're losing on the north side and you're going to lose on the west side. Otherwise, there's no egress. I took a tape measure. You cannot fit 2 cars. Somebody's going to have to back up. It's just going to be a mess. It really is. So I'm just respectfully request that at least at the very minimum, we circle back and have a more in-depth conversation after these studies are done.
Okay, thank you. Your time's
Thank you
up.
for your
Thank
time.
you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Yes, sir.
For the record, my name is Tracy Barlow, and I'm here with the Coronado Community United Methodist Church regarding this agenda item as well as the companion agenda item prior to your consideration there. Just to let you know that we do have members of the church here to answer any questions if it gets into further discussion when it gets to the agenda item. The other thing that I request is that we consider the sale of this property prior to considering the lease because they're a companion item, you know, as you know, you directed staff at the last meeting to make them a companion item to do that extension on the lease agreement. So we probably need to talk about the sale first. And then also let you know is, you know, timing is kind of critical for us. As the individual mentioned, the eyesore with the Tyvek wrapped house is the proceeds from this sale will go towards that capital project to finish fixing the house up there, which can be used to provide other services within the community itself. Okay, so I just want to let you know that if anything else, we can answer questions when it comes to the agenda item. We are here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Patty Lee Davis. I live at 221 Columbus with my husband Doug that's already been up here. We built the house. Can I just drop this a little bit? Sure. We built the house 8 years ago. We knew what the traffic was like. We knew it was going to be busy, and we knew it was going to be loud from Flagler. So we went into it. We did hurricane windows, but until you live someplace, then you really find out. Thursday through Sundays, from probably about, I don't know, all day long until 2 o'clock at night. The nighttime being the worst. The people have been drinking on Flagler Avenue. I don't have a problem with drinking, but they do come over and they do urinate in that lot. There's a car there that's been there for 2 months where a man has lived in it. The police tell him to move, and he drives around the block and he goes back. They dump all their trash, their beer bottles. And I want to give you a visual of our neighborhood. We're on the short block of Columbus. There's 4 houses that are residential, and then 2 houses that are owned by Coronado. Coronado has not been taking care of the houses. They don't clean any of this stuff up. Tom does, or my husband does. So it's become a real eyesore. But if you add more parking, the traffic is going to get even worse. And our street is a narrow street. We don't have sidewalks. And where our house, the garage faces Pine Street, there's no sidewalks there either. And so it's like taking your life in your hands when you walk your animals. But it's just getting, it's almost, I mean, it's right next to us, and I don't know how Tom and Shannon are going to do it. Their bedrooms are right there next to that lot. And it's loud now. And there's been people that have lived in the backyard that were homeless. And we know that the police, you know, officers, they're short-staffed. They can't do any more than what they do. And it just seems like let someone else buy it, make it into a short-term rental. They'll keep it up. You know, they'll condition who they're going to be renting it to. Most people are pretty responsible. So that's kind of our concern. So we're very much against the city buying it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Murphy. I reside at 220 Columbus Ave, and I'm opposed.
I'm sorry to cut you off real quick. That's not working. It's still at like 23:55, so it's going from red to green, but the clock hasn't. So sorry. Go ahead.
I got a lot to complain about.
Yeah.
So I need all that. There we go. There we go.
All right, go ahead.
I'm opposed to the city purchasing 214 Columbus Ave. That is the only buffer between our home, which we reside at full time, and the existing sand parking lot. The trees would definitely have to come out of there to put all that parking in there. So that's my biggest concern. not to mention the more traffic that it would bring. And I've had a lot of property damage from 2 a.m. drunk drivers leaving that parking lot. I've lost my mailbox. I've lost landscaping. I've had to replace the fence behind my house 3 times. The city removed 2 huge oak trees behind my house a couple years ago. I've called several times regarding that, and they said it wasn't in the budget to replace those trees. That was also a barrier from the shuffleboard courts and the noise that blows up Flagler from the music from the bars. I'm open to that now. So if you take out 214, I'm going to be open up to all of that. Not to mention that there is, at 2 a.m., a lot of trouble happening over there. And I get that the police can't be everywhere. We've had 2 break-ins. Thank God my husband was home one time. The majority of the time I'm there, but with my 11-year-old daughter. We had a man walked into the house. My husband and my son had to subdue him. He was all drugged out. The police came, arrested him. Thank God I wasn't there by myself. But these are the things that are happening. And to just for 10 or 15 more parking spots, I just don't see how that's going to benefit anybody, especially the residents of Columbus Avenue. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just for everyone that's saying, the commission, we try to go by the agenda, so this is our chance to listen, and then you'll hear us talk at that. But it's not that we don't care, that we're not hearing you, or that's why we're not responding. We listen now and then when it gets to it, so, yeah. Thank you. Others, any others? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sandy Landis, 1984 Mayport Avenue. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I presented this petition. I was under the impression you guys had this in your packet, but I understand you didn't. So I'd like to read the petition to you, just so that you are a little bit more aware of what it's about.
Okay.
We, the undersigned, do hereby petition the City of New Smyrna Beach to provide adequate emergency access for residents of Whispering Pines Drive and connecting areas. Whereas Hidden Lakes Golf Course has been the emergency access route for this area, and whereas there are approximately 100 residents in the designated area in question, and whereas an emergency access is needed in case of blockage of Whispering Pines Drive. Therefore, it is a request of the undersigned residents for the City of New Smyrna Beach to enforce the use of the Hidden Lakes Golf Course as our emergency access. And I want you to see, I have signatures.
Yes, ma'am.
Signatures. And I have polled this last 2 weeks the residents of this area, and I asked them about the development and how they felt about it, and no one really has any problems with that. And they were all of the understanding that if that will help us to get this officially in place, that everyone is for this. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. And I do think I received that petition last time. I think we did get a copy of it. Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Hello, my name is Joe Nikosha. Excuse me. I live on Maloney Road, and I'm part of that area there that needs that secondary exit from there. Back in 2007, they were delivering my house, and the driver that was delivering the house messed up, and he didn't lift the trailer ball on the trailer, on the truck that pulls the house through, and the train hit my house. Now that crossing there was down for 6 hours. It made national news and everything. And we definitely need, an emergency exit out of there. I mean, how could an ambulance or a fire department get in there if the train, was blocking up the tracks? And this morning I had a doctor's appointment, and I left my house, and as soon as I get down to the opening, the train was going by, and it was moving so slow, I waited over 10 minutes. We definitely need another exit out of there. If only for emergency, that would be fine. But it's a health risk. There's older people that live there. God forbid somebody has a heart attack. What are we going to do? Sacrifice, a person's life because we don't have another exit? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any others for public participation? All right. Seeing none, we will close public participation. And remember, this is your last chance until the public hearings. Next item is consent agenda. We have 3 items. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? We'll begin with the Vice Mayor.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner McGurk?
None.
Commissioner Hartman?
None.
Commissioner McClody? All right, do I have a motion to approve the 3 items on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I'll take Commissioner Hartman second, I heard that. City Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Commissioner Cludy? Yes. Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, those 3 items are approved. Next item, 7A, Airport Advisory Board, discussion on runway 725 and runway 1129 alternatives. I think we have Rhonda here from the airport, if you want to come up. Before we dive into this, I just want to set the stage, and Rhonda can correct me, or colleague can correct me if I'm wrong. But so essentially, we've got runway 725, which we had to go through this process of evaluating kind of all available options. So I had a resident reach out to me, and they're like, y'all are talking about tunneling Sunset Drive? And I'm like, no one is talking about tunneling Sunset Drive. I know it says that in my agenda package somewhere buried in a report, because it is technically an option, but it's obviously not feasible, and we're not doing that. I just wanted to make that clear as we all start the conversation, that we're not debating those alternatives that clearly really aren't available. What we're really talking about is runway 1129. So, I mean, if y'all want to talk about the others, we can, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about how we all oppose tunneling under Sunset Drive. So with that, Rhonda, if you want to pick it up from there.
Yes, sir, thank you. We, as of 2 years ago, were in the process of looking to do the runway extension 29 environmental assessment, which would tell us whether or not the airport, the possibility of the length and any environmental impact it would have on the residential neighborhoods that surround the airport. Within those discussions, as you know, the 725 length was basically, we were asked to put that 1129 on hold until something was determined on 725. We did multiple reports and held multiple meetings, and it has basically been determined that it's not cost effective to do 725, but to then move forward with the 1129 extension. We've taken it back to the board and held a workshop, and with that, they would like to recommend that we move forward with the 1129 extension, and or at least the environmental assessment of that project, apply for the funding through the FAA and FDOT, and then determine after that analysis is done, which is an 18-month project, that whether or not to move forward with the extension and to continue to operate 725 as it is at its current length, which the FAA has stated they would allow as long as we are looking at the 1129 extension.
Okay.
And
good.
so we just wanted the board's, commission's consensus on if that is the way that you would like us to proceed.
Good summary. So they'll, to reiterate, the FAA will allow 725 to still have that declared distance that is needed to serve existing capacity, no increase to what we're able to do, but just existing capacity. They'll allow 725 as long as we are moving forward in the process on 1129.
That was what was stated by the vice chairman of the FAA office in Orlando at the meeting that we held almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been
and
a
to
bit.
my knowledge,
Yeah.
nothing else has changed.
Okay. To have motion to approve moving forward with an environmental assessment on this item.
Move to approve.
Mr. Mayor, can we have a discussion?
We can. I was just going to get a motion on the table on this one. I didn't think there'd be
Okay.
too much, but we can definitely have a discussion after that. There's always time for that. Do I have a second to this motion, or?
Second.
All right, discussion. Go ahead.
Rhonda, thanks for showing up tonight. This is pretty important. I'm wondering, we'll need an environmental assessment. Does it appear that, I'm looking at the northwestern portion where it shows 11, that degree. Are there any plants or mangroves or anything that need to be removed? That's one concern I have. And then there's if we extend the usable portion of that runway, will there also be a noise impact, an increased noise impact for the end of Islesboro? So the first question is, do we have to remove any?
Well, that is the, before you can do an extension, you have to do an environmental assessment.
Right.
And part of that will be, that both of those questions would be addressed in a environmental assessment. So at that point, then we would go back after getting that report and make a determination of whether those impacts were worth doing the extension or not.
Good answer.
But at this time, I can't really say yes or no. It could be that we would do an extension and keep it all on airport property, which would limit the impacts for those residential neighborhoods and any environmental, like mangroves, that type of thing, wetlands. But it would give us all the necessary information based on the length of the extension as to whether we could go to hit a 5,000-foot runway or 5,400 feet, or if it would come back and it would not be environmentally possible to do. There's nothing to say that we would be able to move forward with the extension, just that we want to do the analysis to determine whether we can or not.
Yes, and that's basically to extend the runway safety zone, which effectually expands the runway.
We would, all of those items would be taken in. It would be an actual runway extension, the runway which currently does not cross 725, they're not intersecting runways. They would become intersecting runways. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 200 feet on the southeast end of the runway, and the balance of it would be on the northwest end of the runway.
Thank you, Rhonda.
And to be clear, because I know the public can be easily confused on this one because we talk about runway extensions. So I just want to make sure we're all clear. Nothing that we're talking about, if this goes through or whatever it would happen, would expand the abilities of the types of planes or anything that is serviced today at the airport. We're trying to maintain what we can do right this second. So we're not talking about being able to service more planes. We're talking about being able to service all the ones we can service today. We're just having to make some configurations to meet modern guidelines for runway safety zones, et cetera. So I just want to be very clear because we use the term runway extensions and people hear, Delta jets landing there, and that's not what we're talking about by any stretch. It is exactly what's there today, but configured differently in short terms.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The current runway is 725. Would at that point have a displaced threshold, so it would no longer be 5,000 foot. What we're trying to do is exactly what you said,
Yes.
is keep our current capacity, the current operations that we serve, by extending the other runway.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
And making sure that we meet FAA guidelines.
Yep. Which, by the way, many airports around the nation do not as of this moment in time. I drove by an airport over in Tampa the other day, and I was like, there's a runway right next to the road. There's no way it meets this guideline. So, any other discussion on this item? City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Clody? Yes. Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rhonda. That item's approved. There was a request, gentlemen, to hear item C, the property sale, before item B. That makes logical sense to me. Anybody opposed to shifting that order? Hearing no opposition, will I hear item C at this time? Item 7C is the approval of a purchase of a property located at 214 Columbus.
Mayor, if you recall, I received an email from the church that was some time back that this property was up for sale, and they want to give the city the first option to do that. In December 8th, we presented this item to the commission, for the purchase of the property at 214 Columbus for the purpose of having an additional parking spaces in conjunction with the parking at Coronado Civic Center. The City Commission authorized the staff to obtain 2 appraisals. We got 2 appraisals. One was at $375,000 and one was at $398,000. Normally what we do is we do the average for the 2 appraisals, and that's what we offer. But the church already had made the offer initially at $377,000. So we did a contract. We offered them the contract at $377,000. That was to be in conjunction with extending the lease on the 65 spaces that we have currently, to extend that lease for 10 years. So you have the 2 items in front of you, obviously because of the concerns we have from the residents, and I'll be more than happy to meet with all of them if the commission decides to do that after the meeting. We'll do that probably in the next week or this coming week.
Okay.
With that, I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
I had one question actually for the church, if somebody wanted to be coming down here just real quick. And then I'll open it up to the commission. We flip-flop these and we kind of put them in tandem. Obviously, this lease that we've had for quite some time, going back, and we would hope would be able to go forward. Is it the church's position basically now that these 2 are hand in glove and one can't proceed without the other? Meaning, if we don't purchase 214, does that put us at risk of not being able to seek a lease extension? Or
For the record, Tracy Barlow, representing Coronado Community United Methodist Church. Yes, we would respectfully request that we pull the lease agreement until we satisfy the sale of the property. Currently, you have the lease agreement in place until November 30th of 2021. If by chance you guys aren't interested in purchasing that property, we'd like the opportunity to take it back to the committee and reevaluate, the next interest in the 214 Columbus, and that may bring value to that property as well, where you currently lease. So yes, we'd respectfully request you pull that agenda item until we satisfy the sale.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. So they're now together in the church's position.
Correct, and and that was a request of you all to kind of make those companions.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You might want to just stay handy, Tracy. All right. Any other discussion or comments on this item, Commissioner Colodi?
I received my mic is alive.
We got it working.
I received a call last Friday from one of the residents adjoining the property we're looking to purchase. His question was, I heard a rumor you might be buying the house next to me. Obviously, somewhere over the last few months, that did not, it didn't register with them that we were this far along in that process. I did meet with them on Monday. I explained some options that we have as to how we might deal with it once we own it, but I can understand how they would really be uncomfortable with us moving ahead at this time. They've committed to me that they would be more than happy to sit down with our staff quickly over the next week or so this matter could be addressed at our next meeting. I feel it would be a disservice to move ahead until they've had that opportunity. We try to be very transparent and have everybody know what's going on. For whatever reason, we're under no obligation to notify neighbors of what we're doing, but everything's been fully published. It's just one of those items that slipped through their cracks and they didn't know. So I would request, after hearing from the rest of the commissioners, that we make a motion to put off at least the one item, and if the church would rather have us put off both, to do that. I don't see the full connection between the two, but as this is news to them also very shortly, I think that we should have a little discussion on that matter, and it would be my recommendation we put it off for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Or till the next meeting.
All right. Yeah, I certainly think there's value, because I heard some comments today about, we would there was a large tree on the property that we would have to take down. I think our city manager, when we last talked about it, I don't remember if this was you and I, or if you said this in a public meeting, but I don't, the city is staunch against taking down large trees. I mean, obviously we have before for health of the tree, but we have an arborist certify that, et cetera. In this case, I don't think we have those plans, so I think we definitely would want to make sure we fully communicate, lay the vision out. So I could, if that takes a little more time, I could support that time, and that'll also give us more time to talk to the church about the linkage between the two. I guess my hope is that those two aren't necessarily linked, but anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm okay with postponing. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I can agree with that. I think it's important that the people who live next door, we hear from them and they hear from us. I think we can work together on this. I think that as you mentioned with the trees, that was the first red flag that went up. I don't believe our plan is not to take any trees down, certainly no historic trees or anything significantly large. Some of the smaller brush obviously may have to, and I think that the buffer, I think that we can figure out a good buffer between that one resident and that piece of property. I'm partial to bamboo, which creates a very thick, dense buffer, which would probably be more than what they have now. So I'm certainly willing to delay this vote to the next meeting so our staff can have an opportunity to talk with the people who live next door and see where we can hopefully come to a meeting of the minds that everybody is happy with.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for Tracy, the sale of the land is contingent on whether we continue the lease? They're tied together? That if we do not purchase the land, we will not be able to continue to lease from Coronado Map?
No, that is certainly not what I said. If you recall at your last meeting when you talked about this and you requested staff to go back and negotiate, you all wanted that linkage because the lease was not due until November 30th. So the purchase of this property for you all made it contingent on us scrambling in 2 weeks to put together a contract. So in fairness to the church staff or the church committee as well, let's keep them together since you have them a companion now. And so let's wait and see what we do with the sale, and then we'll come back and further discuss the lease.
So I'm not a realtor, obviously. Yeah. The sale of the land, okay, we would like to tie the leasing of the land with the purchase to make a larger parking area.
Contractually, it is not contingent.
Okay, so it's not like
so that answers your question. No. That was a request of you all to make a companion.
Commissioner Sachs, if I may, at the time, remember this lease is expiring at the end of this year, and we do heavily rely on that parking, and we had no guarantees or indications from the church whether they would or would not renew that. So our hope was, it's hard to negotiate in a public meeting, but our kind of negotiation, if you will, was, hey, if we buy this property, will you assure us that we can renew that? Because frankly, we had our fingers crossed, like, oh, I really hope they'll renew it because we need it as a community. So that's where we had established that linkage was, hey, if we do this, will you do that for us? Now we've kind of put, now we're just delaying it at this point, but if it were to unwind, that we got to give the church time to respond and figure out what that means for them. And I think that is a fair request, although I do certainly hope they're not linked in perpetuity. So.
Thank you for clearing that up, both of you gentlemen. I just have the concern that I did not know. Is it true that we're not required to notify neighbors of anything that the city does?
So I'm going to let Carrie answer that one.
This is not a land use application where there's certain mail notices. So when it's published on an agenda, that constitutes notice to the city of the city's interests. So we talked about it in December. We've talked about it at multiple meetings. So by no means was this not known, but it just, the message was not portrayed to these particular neighbors. Okay. So they know now.
Okay.
So we don't have to, because it's not a rezoning or something, we don't have to go and post the notice or mail the letters. Right. I will share, I did, because of this, I mentioned to Khaled that in a case like this, it probably would just be a good practice to just send an unofficial letter to the neighboring, just, to avoid it being a surprise. Even though, again, we have been talking about this for some time, so it's not like it was done in secret. But I get it. You have lives. You don't follow what we do every Tuesday night, so I get that as well. So, any other questions,
Yes,
comments?
that would be fine if we could extend it to possibly negotiate with the residents and to allay their fears, which I think are warranted. And I'd also like to know the cost feasibility, how many cars can we actually fit on that spot? Because that would help a lot allaying my concern about the cost.
Okay.
So if we could get a little more engineering, I'd be happier, Khaled. I don't know if you can put your finger on the number of cars on the purchase spot.
Let me understand the question. You're asking about
The question is, how many cars can we put on the spot?
the price of the lot
No,
itself?
can we do some mock-ups of like how many cars can we put so we can figure out like the cost-benefit type analysis?
I think the plan that Commissioner Colodi has, and it looks like it has 15 spots, Commissioner Colodi, about?
I'm going to suggest, since it seems like we're leaning towards continuing this, let's just
Yeah,
delay
that's
that.
fine.
We'll bring all
But
that back.
it's about
yeah.
15
Okay.
spots, and typically, Commissioner Sachs, we use about 400 square feet for every spot. So
Yeah.
whatever the lot size, you divide it by 400, it kind of roughly gives you how many spaces.
Okay.
This lot is unique because it has some trees, and we're trying, when we looked at it, is not to take any trees out. So you might have to lose one or two on that regard.
Carrie, this isn't any kind of a public hearing or anything, so do we need a motion to move this, or can we just say that we're moving it? And-
Yeah, just by consensus, we
Okay,
can.
yeah, I had,
And
you
Mayor,
have comments, go ahead.
In our
Go ahead.
And just for the record, our committee is amenable if you guys want to continue to the next meeting, but we are pretty anxious to finish off that Tyvek's house.
Sure.
So, okay.
Go
That
ahead.
was my question, is when does this contract expire, and would you be okay with holding off until the next meeting?
Yeah, we can do an extension. I can work with your
Okay.
staff and do a formal extension on that to the next meeting. Okay?
And-
Okay.
So we're amenable.
Staff thinks you can meet with the residents?
I'm going to try to meet with them as soon
Okay.
as possible.
All right, thank you.
All right. City Clerk, if you would pull the names of the folks that spoke and make sure that Khaled has those, and I'm sure Commissioner Colodi as his own rep may want to be there as well. But okay, so items C and B, so B and C, the lease and the property will be discussed at our next meeting. Thank you all that came to speak tonight. Item 7D, consider request for approval of a funding source to resurface the bike path along the North Causeway. City Manager, do we have a
Yes.
report?
Yes, sir. If you recall, this item was brought to the commission previously. The staff recommendation at the time was to do the entire bike path. During the commission discussion, Commissioner Colodi suggested that after he walked, that he suggested we only do the area that it was damaged and has some root rots from the trees. I have walked it just before New Year's Day. I've seen the areas that it has some damage. Right now we have a couple of options in front of you. One is you could do the entire length of the path. You could do only the damaged area, or you could do nothing. Well, the could do nothing is not an option we recommend. Either option is fine with the staff at this time. Staff is, I'm talking about engineering and maintenance op, they are recommending to do the entire stretch of the bike path. The reason for that is because we have some certain areas that right now probably it's not as bad as the other areas, but it has some cracks that it might end up with that, and they're looking from an aesthetic standpoint. The cost, obviously, it's an estimated cost at this point. We would not know the exact cost until we put it out to bid. Right now, if they do the damaged area, it looks like it's in the $70,000. So what we're looking from the commission tonight is to give us direction on the option of the repair and then the method of funding. So you could select any of the options I mentioned about the repair and then the method of funding. I have presented a couple of options for the commission. One is that Commissioner Hartman suggested he wanted to use the resurfacing funds. I have offered to use some of the funds that we have delayed on some of the items in the current budget that we hold on because of the union negotiation. In particular, one of them is for the position of the Assistant Maintenance Operation Director. At this point, I'm not looking to fill that position in this year. I wanted to fill it next year, so you have that money there, and also you have another funding that Commissioner Hartman has mentioned is the revenue we are receiving right now on the testing site. That's about $24,000 a month. So, and right now the state has a contract up until July of 2021. So that's the two things we're looking is what method, what option on the repair, and then what method of funding.
Colin, do you have any idea to do the whole thing? Would they just take the whole path out of the affected area? They'd take that whole thing out of service and just kind of do it as one long thing? And how long would it be out of service? Or would they do it in stages? Or how disruptive would that be?
It will be most likely disruptive because even if they do it in sections, they will be a disruptive, so they have to go. But I would say probably, depending on how fast we get a contractor and how fast he can come in, but you're looking probably in terms of probably 2-3 months.
I meant the disruption period. I don't care from when we get I meant the time when people can't be on the bike path, because that's what we're going to get calls about.
I would say probably 2-3 months.
2 to 3 months total, where we'd have folks that wouldn't
That's
be able to use it.
maximum, depending on how fast the contractor goes.
Okay.
So we might, if we put in the bid that we wanted to finish it in certain time, obviously the cost goes up a little bit. So now you're trying to control his timing.
Yeah. So, gotcha. Okay. Comments on this item, Commissioner Colodi.
Time is money.
We prepared a budget for this calendar year. At the time we did not include any funds in for this type of work. If it was an emergency situation, we should have budgeted for it last year. We're talking about taking money from something we felt was very important to budget money for, and now we're not. So I have a problem with that. Second is, I've been on the path. It's very near my house. It's used quite a lot. It's used very much. I hate to see it taken out of service, but sometimes you have to do things. Luckily, there is full length of sidewalk on the other side of the North Causeway that could be used. They have to cross the road. I just find making an emergency appropriation, which is what this amounts to, for a non-emergent idea to be the wrong thing. I certainly want the path fixed. I might have been the one who received the complaint to bring it to the commission to begin with. But I just think the appropriate way to do it is make it safe. There's other things that enter into it. Correct our problems, all about a little piecemeal, but we would be not taking about $50,000 at least and transferring it away from something that we had planned on doing. So that's my thought. I am for doing the piecemeal repair. I think the cost estimates are high, but I leave that up to our staff to put it out to bid and see what we get.
Okay. Other comments?
Yes, why not? It may be $700,000 to replace that whole walkway. I also would like to see the dangerous area repaired. There's a big difference. The numbers I was given, $700,000 versus $70,000 to do the repair. Both excessive sums of money, and hopefully we can pare those down. But the humps that are mostly towards the western end, I would like to see repaired. I know it won't look as pretty as a whole new path, but we're saving a bit of money and making people safe at the same time. So I'd like to see piecemeal.
Okay. Other comments, or do I have a motion?
Go ahead.
I need some clarification. My understanding and my In my notes is the difference between 70,000 and about 120,000, not 700,000.
Did I read wrong?
Just for clarification.
70,000.
Go ahead, John.
70,000.
70,000 is the piecemeal, but in our agenda, we have option 2, resurfacing fund. It says 700,000 is available for this FI resurfacing.
okay,
I don't think that's
wonderful.
the whole budget. I think it's 70 versus, what would it be to do the whole thing,
It's,
roughly? I know we haven't bid
Roughly,
it.
it was 120,000 initially.
So
doing
it's
that.
70 versus 120, so you're talking almost more than 50% of the cost to do piecemeal, and then, anyway.
So that's the 50,000 that Commissioner Clody's talking
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
the difference.
Good,
So
good
I
clarification.
just wanted clarification.
Yeah. Commissioner Hartman, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think it opens us up to tremendous liability not doing something sooner than later. I understand Commissioner Colodey's idea that maybe it should have been evaluated and brought through the budget process earlier, but it wasn't, and we're stuck with it now. To his concerns about not having budgeted that money, we also roughly have $216,000 coming in from the state for the rental of the gym that also was not included in our revenue source when we did the original budget. So my motion is to do the sidewalk, repair the sidewalk completely from the beginning to the end, and use it and pay for it out of general fund.
Second for discussion.
Okay, I had a motion, and that motion for clarity was to do the entire repair beginning to end, as said by staff, which I think was from DeSoto to Riverside Drive to DeSoto Drive, beginning to end, and pay for it out of general fund, which is the same place those other funds are going. I had a second to that for discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just need some clarity. The $70,000, the piecemeal, it was coming, we did not have a funding source. We had to pick from one of the two options.
Yes.
Your motion, Commissioner Hartman, was to pull the full amount from the money we're getting from the Live Oak Testing Center.
It's to pull the money out of the general fund, so whether he decides not to.
Right, but
it's
we're
his
going
it'd
to
be the-
pull but put in that
Right,
money
the
you're
city
going to
man- it'd
offset.
be at the city's manager's discretion, but certainly I think that there are funds available to us that was not anticipated when we went through the budget process in September. And at 9 months at 24,000, that's $216,000.
So, yeah, so we're not even going to come close to using it all. So
No.
I
can help you spend the rest of it though if you want.
I can't. Yeah, get in line, right? So I agree with you, we have to do something at this point. And now it's a liability issue, it's been brought forward. We have exposure there. So we have to move forward with that. I'm not happy that we don't have a funding source for this. This is something that we need to consider going forward. We end up in situations like this without specific funding sources to be able to deal with what we know is going to be a maintenance issue down the road, this and many other things. So I'm gonna agree with Commissioner Hartman. I'm going to support this, and we're going to essentially offset the cost by the money the unexpected money we're getting at the Live Oak Center, which will more than be enough to cover it.
I just want to point out one thing. It's the number that you have, the 120, that's an estimated number. So the actual number is when we get the bid. So I just want to make sure that hopefully the bid would be less than the 120. But just in case if it came over 120, that this is an estimated number.
Understood.
Okay. Mr. Clody?
Discussion on the motion. I agree to take monies out of the general fund for it. As to the fact that we have $214,000 or whatever we end up with, I don't think we've explored other ways that might be more beneficial. It's my recommendation we solve what is a hazard or a possible hazard out there and continue at that point.
Okay.
It was never even brought up before.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that, my motion is to pay for it out of the general fund. This money from the rental that we get from the gym goes into the general fund. If the city manager says he's not going to fill a position that was in last year's budget, certainly he could apply that towards this. But it should come out of the general fund. I don't want to tap reserves, and I don't want to cancel some building project that we had funded through the budget process last year. But certainly, if he's not going to fill a position there during this budget cycle and wants to put it off, and wants to use that money that way, I'm fine with that. But we're at a tremendous liability out there with trip and falls, anything else that may happen, and theoretically, we could make that street a one-way street, add an extra bike path or walking path along the roadway if and when actually the sidewalk gets torn up. I mean, there's other ways to work around the pedestrian traffic mobility, but I think it needs to be done. I mean, we've been spending 2 months now, 2.5 months talking about this, and it's a liability out there. I mean, I hate to keep saying that in the public, but we need to do something. It needs to be done now, and we have an unfunded revenue source that we didn't count on that could hopefully more than pay for this. So that's my motion.
Okay. So I had a motion and a second. That motion was to do the entire project at this time and add a funding source from the general fund, which we don't have to identify the source of what goes in. I think the commissioners just pointed out we do have some unbudgeted revenues that would perhaps help offset this cost. My comments on this couple things, I don't think it's an emergency, but it's not an emergency in that we couldn't have seen it coming, and that's where I think I'm probably a little frustrated, and others probably are as well. I don't know. I thought we had this whole laser system that went around and evaluated all of our roads and sidewalks and everything and told us like this kind of stuff so that we could plan for it so we weren't here. So I think that's where my source of frustration is, and probably others, is that we should have seen this coming and it should have been in this year's budget, or if not, then there's other stuff that's way worse than this, and we just didn't get low enough on the list. So one of those two things had to have happened for us to be here. We either missed it or we didn't get deep enough on the list to get to it. And I don't really care which it is, but I'd just say, that's why I think we're having trouble classifying it as an emergency, because we could have seen it coming. However, I do think at this time, and I don't walk or run that, but I know a lot of people that do, that walk and run it, bike it on a daily basis. And they will tell you it is a really putting them at risk. And so you let one of them fall and have a lifetime injury where they're now an active person, that they have an injury that they nurse the rest of their life. And that's, I don't want that on my conscience. So I think I'm with Commissioner Hartman. We got to move fast. We got to put this behind us. We should have started the process 2 months ago. We've been messing around. So I can support it as planned. But my challenge to staff is I hope with future processes that stuff like this, we don't get here. And so we'll figure that out in next year's budget. All right, we had a motion. We had a second. Kelly, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Coloding?
No.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
No.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, this was approved, Khaled. Item 7E, consider the approval of a license agreement regarding the property at 521 South Cooper Street. Mr. Mathen has a brief report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The property owners at 521 South Cooper Street has requested approval of a license agreement to allow Shell in a portion of the South Cooper Street right-of-way for an off-street parking area. The applicant is proposing to maintain an existing Shell parking area that's 10 feet wide by 75 feet long in that right-of-way of an existing single-family house that's located at 521 South Cooper Street. The city engineering staff reviewed the application. They support the application for the Shell parking area. The applicant is aware that the agreement would not grant exclusive use of that right-of-way in that area, and staff is supporting and recommends approval of the commission for the license agreement.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I'll pause for discussion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I have inspected the property. I've also looked at Cooper, which we've taken steps in the past to cut down traffic on it, have some little traffic islands out there. And this particular property, which is either under contract or has been sold, has frontage on 2 streets, has frontage on Evergreen. In fact, their driveway is on Evergreen. There's plenty of off-street parking for them. There's also plenty additional room on their property if they need additional parking spaces to put it outside of our right-of-way. So I just can't support it. If there's a reason for this type of improvement, yes, I don't see it here.
Okay. Yes.
So these licensing agreements have been pulling at me. You know, when I asked staff why this is not on consent agenda, I went through what I understood as the history and the reason why we're doing this. For many, many decades, people who own private property did improvements to the right-of-way. You mow it, you take care of it. Most people think it's part of their own property. You landscape it, you put a mailbox on it, a lot happens. Well, lo and behold, 10, 12 years ago or so, it became trendy for cities to require a licensing agreement, which is really, as I understand, a hold harmless to the city to anything you do in the public right-of-way. So we're treating these things like they're special requests. And we have a whole city full of people who have developed in some way through landscaping and rocks and so on and so forth their right-of-way long before these licensing agreements ever came about. So now we're we're denying them for essentially what people were able to do in the past. So I'm a little puzzled as to why we're spending this much time on these things when really this has been something that people have done forever, and most of the city is unconforming to it right now, and we're going to have to deal with that big problem, which is going to come before us at some point in the future when code enforcement gets a call and then hands someone this licensing agreement, which is happening out there. Commissioner Colodi, I believe this happened in your district, right in your neighborhood a couple months ago. So I'm just a little puzzled why they come before us for approval and we deny them when my understanding is this is just people doing what they had done for decades before. Where am I missing this, or what am I'm a little challenged on?
Okay, so if that's a question directed for me. So currently right now you can park in the right-of-ways. So people park on the side of the roads, they park in front of their houses. If they have grass, then you could have issues with the substructure under that grass where you could have ruts and things like that. What this does, it stabilizes the area in the area that you can park anyways, but because they're doing an improvement other than grass, we have this agreement in place.
Yeah.
The city attorney may have to expand on that, but it sets who's responsible for what, and that we can remove the stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
It's to keep people from putting structures in there, because sometimes people will put like the big coquina rocks because they don't want people parking in front of the yard, but it's in our right of way. So the agreement specifies what's going to be allowed for them to approve that section that's in front of their house.
Which, well, my point is, this should be a staff issue. What I'm confused about is why it comes before the commission. This is a staff issue, an agreement with the property owner in the city. At the very least, it should be on the consent agenda, but we're treating these things, we're approving some, denying others. I don't think we should be approving these. I think this is an issue between the city attorney and the planning department and the homeowner. So my question is, why is this not just a staff issue?
Well, in the past, it had been on the consent agenda for years, so it stopped being on the consent agenda about 2 years ago.
Right.
2 to 3 years ago.
We're treating this like, yeah,
let me jump in. I'm going to bring Carrie in because she may can answer it. I think to staff's defense, it's not on the consent agenda because they were getting pulled off, and so they try to read the commission and work with that. So if it had been on the consent tonight, I have a feeling it would have been pulled. Carrie, did you have anything to add on the license?
Yeah, just some hesitation with, we have liability for things that are placed in our right-of-way, so having staff make those decisions without commission input on liability, probably not the best practice we could adopt, but probably no objection to moving it back to consent. And then just pulling it when you all want to talk about it.
Well, I think just some kind of, some history and understanding of what these are. I mean, where people are denying, they're using their own personal judgment on whether or not we deny one and prove another. So the whole concept behind them lends to a staff kind of issue. Now, if we have to hear them for a legal reason, I get that, but I'm just talking to my commission now. We should be generally following staff's recommendation or approving these unless there's some glaring issue with what's wrong with them. Because really this is little to do with us and more to do with what people have done historically in the right-of-way in front of their homes. So,
Yeah.
I've said my piece.
Thank you. Carrie and/or Bob, folks, not only can a homeowner park in their own right-of-way, as we see all throughout Beachside, your district, and mine, and all of ours, really, anyone can park in the right-of-way. And we deal with that all through Beachside, where folks come out and say, hey, this is my, park in my yard. And people, it's a public right-of-way, and they call us, so we're, I guess my question is, to staff, is there harm in this? I mean, how is the city harmed in this? If we needed to go in and lay some pipe through this right-of-way or expand the road, are we responsible for anything on that right-of-way? Are we, as far as like taking it up or dealing with it, or is that homeowner responsibility, or how does that work?
Well, I think the agreement, we're not responsible for replacing or putting back any of the materials.
Yeah, so worst case scenario, we have to bulldoze it out to do whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
And then if we have to do that, that's tough luck on them, right?
If I may,
Yeah.
what happened is the whole entire purpose of the licensing agreement, so they are responsible for the maintenance of whatever they went in the right-of-way. If you don't do that, and then they put that thing in the right-of-way, and say, for example, we go out there to put a drainage pipe, for example, and they put a brick driveway or a brick area for them to park, we will be responsible to place it back. Having the license agreements, if we do that, we will take it, it would be at their own expense.
But as it's written now, they actually couldn't do that without asking. They couldn't just, if we deny this tonight, I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, I'm saying if it gets denied tonight, they wouldn't be able to go put this in. Like, that would be a violation. I mean, they couldn't do it without us. But to Commissioner Burke's point, they exist all over without this agreement in
Yeah.
place.
Well, most of the ones that you've seen, they're in violation. They didn't do it based on the requirement or based on the city ordinance or city resolution that we have.
Yeah.
But if they want to do it right, then you go through the licensing agreement. I mean,
Yeah.
you could see the one that we have on Riverside back when they had the detour. You could see these people, they put the cones in the right-of-way, if you recall. And that wasn't allowed to put it in the right-of-way because it created a liability for us. Somebody ran over these cones, they busted their tire, guess what? We're paying for it.
Right, so I'm not challenging the licensing agreement. I'm just making a point that to put something in your right-of-way in front of your home, the licensing agreement is what's new. I don't think it should be something that we're determining whether we should or shouldn't. If it meets, if the property owner signs the agreement and agrees to the city's terms, that's where that process should end, in my opinion.
All right.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve if you'll entertain one. Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second? No further discussion. City Clerk, if you call the roll.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
No.
Mayor Owen?
Yes. License agreement was approved. Thanks, Bob. Item 7F, Kyle would remind me, I just made a note that we have a 7F. I don't remember what that one was.
It's a pension board.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Composition amendment for Carrie should go.
Got it. All right, Gary, go ahead.
Currently, in our Code of Ordinances, Section 2-149, the City Commission shall appoint from its membership 2 members to serve ex officio as trustee of the Police Department Pension Fund and 2 members to serve ex officio as trustees of the Fire Department Pension Fund. You all had indicated some interest in exploring possible amendments to this section. Our HR director surveyed other cities in Volusia County. The only other city in Volusia County who has a commissioner serving on pension boards is Port Orange, where they have 1. We currently have 2 on each board. We postponed our appointments to the pension board to allow you time to discuss this and to give direction on what you would like to see in terms of an amendment. I would say your options are to take all commissioners off and be consistent with other cities in Volusia County, or leave 1. You could leave it as is or change it to 1 member of the city commission serving ex officio and appointing a citizen to serve in that other seat. And with that, we invite your discussion and direction.
So real quick, Carrie, our options, we can obviously leave it as is, which would be 2. We could go down to 1. Could we go to 0, or is that not an option for some reason?
If you go to 0, it would just say the city commission shall appoint 2 members from its citizenry to serve on those boards.
Okay.
And that is what the majority of the cities in Volusia County do.
Gotcha. All right, gentlemen, I don't know that we need lengthy discussion on this. What's the commission's pleasure? 2, 1, or 0 of commissioners? Commissioner Gallotti?
1.
1. Commissioner Vice Mayor Sacks?
0.
Commissioner?
0.
1.
All right, hang on. So you were 1?
Yes.
And you were 1?
Yes.
And you were 0 and 0?
Question?
Okay. Hang on, my 1s want to talk, so go ahead, 1.
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hartman.
Well, my question was to Carrie, actually, would they have to be a citizen or could it be a member of staff? Because historically, it's usually somebody from the HR or finance.
Yeah, it could be a member of staff.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Gallotti, I'm coming to you. Do you have something?
Well, I've been on the fire pension board. I find it very interesting. I know my fellow commissioners on it also. Sometimes we hear things that it might be either good or bad to us. Philosophically, I don't see why we're on it, except I think it does have some benefit.
Okay. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Sacks?
I have felt most recently that there could be a conflict of interest being an elected who decides on benefits for police and fire that we sit on their pension board. It's a daunting and very responsible task to be a board member. We're responsible for their money, and we try to do it at the best of our ability. But then I'm finding, come contract time, you could have a conflict. There's an array of conflicts that could happen. So I'd rather not be on the board.
So we're split at 1 and 0, so I'll share my opinion in a minute. I do have one question for Commissioner Hartman or Gallotti. I'll let Hartman answer, and if you have something to add. I've never served on either, so I'm leaning towards 0, so why would we leave 1 behind? Because I tend to agree with everything Vice Mayor just said.
I think as an elective, pensions are one of your biggest costs.
Yeah.
One of your biggest benefits.
Getting bigger.
And I think as an elective, it serves us well to have that perspective.
Okay.
Sitting up here on some of the discussions that go on, some of the things that we're talking about. So I prefer to have 1.
Okay. So how do you feel about what he just said, though, as far as it feeling conflicted of, like, you're on the board, but you also have to then vote on the pension itself? Like, does that not?
You're 1 vote out of 5 on that.
But you could be right now I'm a swing vote. You could absolutely be the swing vote.
So, but I truly think, especially smaller cities, it's a benefit to have somebody who's in the legislative branch or on the dais familiar with some of these pension issues, because when you go to negotiations or when these issues come up, you at least have a little bit of a background about that. How they're financed, where the revenue stream is, what the benefits are, what the long-term costs are going to be. So it's important to have that.
Are those meetings open to the public?
Pardon?
Yes.
Those meetings are open to the public?
Yes.
All right. So I think we should have 0, but you should attend them all. I'm gonna go with 0. I happen to agree with everything Vice Mayor said. I feel like it, and I don't know, you didn't really comment on it, but that may be where your thinking is as well. But if we want the information, staff is certainly there. They can brief us. We can review the meeting, but I think it could put whoever that member is in a tight spot if they were in this exact position and they happen to be the deciding vote. I think Commissioner Sacks' point, or Vice Mayor Sacks' point, was well made. So I tend to be in favor of 0. So whoever the motion maker is, you heard it. We got 3 folks that are in favor of amending it to 0. Carrie?
And one other question. So as Commissioner Hartman pointed out, you can have a citizen, you could have an active employee or a retiree, or a resident. So in your motion, I would ask for direction. I mean, we could keep all 3 on the table, or you could say 1 shall be an active employee, or 1 could be a citizen, or, I'm sorry?
I was just making sure you said resident. You meant staff, citizen, staff, or ex-employee?
Retiree, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, which of those do you prefer? All the above, or pick one? Yes.
I just want to point out that right now, there is one member of the board who is not a fireman and has not been a fireman. In addition to two of, he's a general member of the public, doesn't even live in town. So that's the way it is right now. I just think it's important to have our finger on the pulse. So I like one, that's all.
No, I hear you, but we've crossed that bridge. We're at 0. But what do we want as of do you want anyone, ex-employee, anyone, or staff member?
No
Or
preference.
any of the, no preference. Vice Mayor, any thought?
Not particularly a preference. I wouldn't mind though
Okay.
seeing one more employee. We currently have 2 employees on our boards, I think. I could see
Okay.
one more employee and a resident.
I'm not hearing strong preference. I don't have one, so maybe to the motion maker, I'd say we just leave it open, and this and future commissions can determine if they want it to be staff or public or employee or whatever. And so, all right, with that, I'd entertain a motion on this item.
But I mean, you didn't specifically say staff, you said citizen, right?
So staff is also an option.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she misspoke. She said resident and then citizen
Okay.
later. I think she meant staff in one of those.
Yeah, my objection to having a retiree or an employee there is you could theoretically stack the board. If you have 2
Yeah.
people, employees, you have a retiree or you have a 3rd employee, you theoretically could stack the board, and I mean, that's worse than not having any of us on there. So I would certainly support a member of staff or a citizen.
Do you want to make a motion?
No, because I want one.
All right. Do you want to make a motion?
All right. Make a motion to remove the city commissioners from serving on the board and add to the possibility of those to be well, I was off for all 3. Where do we end up?
Staff or citizen was the last I heard.
Yeah, I mean, the concerns are well made, so I could say.
Well, there's two being appointed anyway, so in my motion, it can be a staff member or citizen.
To exclude current or former.
Well,
I just want to make it clear, yeah.
We allow retired firefighters to serve on one of those slots already.
Yeah.
So if we're changing that, then does that affect that current person or just the 2 new people were?
Just the 2.
So I'm just concerned with these two new seats that we will, well, they're not new, but
Yeah.
the composition of the 2 seats that the commission would be giving up.
So what we need to clarify is one of the slots can be filled with a retired firefighter, as it is now possible. But the 2 slots that we're going to be opening up cannot.
Yeah.
Have to be filled with either a resident or an employee.
Yes.
Citizen or employee.
Yeah, and I guess for clarity though, citizen could be a retired firefighter, so I think we'd need to explicitly exclude that criteria.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Because there's already one on.
Right. Okay, so to clarify the motion, I don't think we got a second yet, but to clarify the motion, it's to remove the commission, and that is filled by a citizen, not to be a former retired, or a former firefighter, retired firefighter, or a staff member at the discretion of the appointing commission. That was the motion. Do you clarity on the motion?
I'm a retired firefighter, but I'm not an employee of the fire department, nor would have an interest in that. So I would say a plan participant or a retiree from the plan. I don't want somebody who's in the plan or a retiree of the plan stacking the deck on the board.
So plan participant's probably the right term to insert there in the motion. That's a good idea.
Do you understand?
Got it.
Because we got 2 retired firefighters, but they're not plan participants.
Well, they're already not allowed to serve on the board. And that's why Colodi and I are on the board and they're on police, because those 2 cannot serve on the fire board. Conflict of interest.
No.
If they were just citizens, I think they could.
I mean, you may have a retiree from
Orlando,
New Jersey
Yeah.
or Orlando, who's a retired firefighter, but may be a good pick. But if you say the 2 that we pick can't be a retired firefighter.
I meant
It
New
should
Smyrna.
be
I meant plan
anybody,
participant. I meant
anybody
plan
who's
participant
is a plan participant, whether active or retired.
in our plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the motion is gonna be, it could be a citizen, it could be an employee, but it cannot be a participant of the plan.
Correct. Good motion. So you okay with that? Do I have a second on that motion?
Second the motion.
All right. City Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Sacks,
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman,
No.
Commissioner McGurk,
Yes.
Mayor Owen.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. That is amended, and
Question, quick
Yes.
question. Should we continue to serve until we fill those positions?
I was about to ask Carrie. Carrie will.
Yes, and we had planned to do those appointments, I think, the second meeting in March. So I'll be working on the text amendment and continue to serve until we get those.
Yeah. Good question. Literally took the words out of my mouth. All right. 8A. This is the second reading and quasi-judicial public hearing would rezone approximately 41 acres from Volusia County Zone A3, et cetera, et cetera. Ordinance 106-20. This item was continued from the January 12th, 2021 City Commission meeting. The involved parties, witnesses, and applicants were sworn in, provided testimony at that meeting, and were cross-examined. The public hearing was closed somewhere around the crack of dawn. And we will continue now where we left off. Before we go, we want to just go through a quick round of disclosures just to make sure everything is again on the record.
Yep, and just for the record, it's the city's position that the newly adopted Section 2-148 is what applies to this proceeding. But in the event this proceeding is subject to court review, it's our position, we have also properly made all disclosures pursuant to 2-147 in the event that a court determines that 2-147 apply. With that being said, since the last meeting, Commissioner Colodi, have you had any ex parte communications?
Before you begin, we did hear the one public comment tonight, the one lady with the petitions, so we all heard that. That was,
And I believe the court reporter has that.
if you
Yes.
caught that part, okay, so just making sure that one applies to all of us, we all heard that, all right.
Right. So other than what was stated during public comment, have you had any conversations that did not happen here tonight between last meeting and tonight regarding
None.
this item?
None.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Had no ex partes.
Mayor Owen?
No evidentiary, I've talked through the mechanics of tonight with the city attorney, but no evidentiary things.
Okay. And Commissioner McGurk?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I
Can you
had.
tell me what you...
Yes, the first one was, I had a discussion with Ms. Sandy Landis about some clarification on the emergency access.
And she is one of the individuals who came up and spoke tonight?
That's correct.
Okay. And anything else?
The second thing I had was, on Wednesday, I found a text message sent to me by Lee Griffith on Monday, the Monday previous to the last commission meeting. And I have sent that to your office so you can keep a record of it. I did not respond to it then or now, have not responded to it in any way.
Okay, and for the record, it was a text message from Lee Griffith checking how you feel about the project and whether he can answer any questions or concerns. This has been provided to the applicant. Last meeting, there was a third-party intervener. I don't see anybody here from there. Sir?
They're back there.
If you want to come forward, I'll provide this to you. And applicants and third-party intervener, if you have any questions regarding this ex parte communication, feel free to ask any questions now.
We'll give him a minute to review that. We'll keep going if you want.
Commissioner McGurk, it looks like these are just questions, but is there anything that was said in those ex parte communications that your vote would be based upon?
No.
Is your vote based solely upon the testimony that was given at the last meeting and the written report submitted by staff and the two public comments that were made, one or two, I'm not sure how many there were, tonight?
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Hartman, do you have
None.
any? Thank you. And once the third-party intervener. Do you have any questions for any of the commission? No? Okay.
Okay.
All right, so now we can open it up to commission discussion.
All right, and so again, we're picking up basically where we left off. So we had heard a lot of testimony, we'd heard a lot of discussion. A lot of it was related to this easement agreement, and I think just for clarity from the public's vantage point, our vantage point, or for the public's benefit from our vantage point, that's not the item before us tonight, is the validity of that agreement, because we're not the right judges to judge, the legalities of, the weight of one particular word over another in that document. That, if it's to be debated, will be debated outside of this. Staff's representation is that the terms that have been presented here in this item for us, there is an emergency access requirement as a part of this agreement with the city, and that the applicant is presenting that they've met that with what they've presented. So that's kind of where we're at. That was a lot of what happened at the last meeting. So here today, we're really just debating and discussing this item and this rezoning. Brian is still an expert witness, as he was sworn in from the last time and qualified to be an expert witness. So that will all carry over as well. You'll still be qualified as expert and under oath. With that, I'll open it up to commission questions or comments with staff or among ourselves, really. Yes, Commissioner Cody.
I don't have any questions for anybody. I have been to the property. I've been to the golf course. In fact, I played on the golf course. I've been to the neighborhood. I've been to the area off Whispering Pines, which is still designated for the most part for large lot development. The Hidden Pines existing development is actually classified as R4. The requirements in the R4, and I think it's very important to have a development that should fit in well with its neighbors. I understand there is a density amount that's been previously calculated, and this has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the development of the property itself. Probably the easiest way for me to describe what are my concerns. The R4, and I'm going to read the qualifications and the restrictions that are established in the R4, which is a very close neighbor to this. It requires a 5,000 square foot lot for single family. We're proposing 4,400. Lot depth is not an issue. Lot widths are 50 feet in the R4. They're proposing 40. It's a lot of homes very close together. Duplexes, although they are not that much of a concern of mine, R4 allows 7,500 square feet. They're proposing 4,125 square feet. Lot depth is not a problem. Lot width, although the R4 requires 75, 66 doesn't concern me that much. It's on the single family, proposed single family lots. Front yard is no problem. Rear yard, they propose to meet the front yards. The rear yards are 7.5 feet in an R4. They're proposing 20. That's better. Side yards in R4 are 7.5 feet. They're proposing a 5-foot side yard. Making sure I wasn't the culprit. They're proposing a 5-foot side yard. This is on a 40-foot lot. Therefore, they have 30 feet left to construct a dwelling. One thing, from my understanding, would be that they would have to meet the rest of the requirements in our code. One of the requirements in our code is that no eave or encroaching device similar to that can be closer than 5 foot to the property line. So to have a 5-foot side yard, you would be constructing a building that would not appear like the sketches are in their exhibit. They would be more akin to a commercial-sized building without eaves, or perhaps a multifamily without eaves. So I think it's impractical to have a 5-foot side yard. With the narrow lot widths of 40 feet, I understand they're proposing to limit parking to one side. This may be helpful, yet the use of the properties is going to be restricted whenever there are guests, maintenance people, or whatever. With a driveway coming onto the property, there's only room to park one car in front of the house. So I find that to be a difficulty. If we go to maximum building coverage, which in a lot of our newer developments tends to be a problem. Maximum building coverage in the R4 is 40%. Duplexes are proposing 57%, 48% for single family. It's my concern that if we approve the PUD, as it's shown to us now, that we will be creating situations that are not in the best interest of the town. I would love to see this come back, let them work out the details. Density is not an issue, that's established. But the plan that's proposed now, I don't think is in the best interest of the town. I did express concerns over the fact there is only one way into this development. However, there's apparently nothing in our code that says that you should have a boulevard-type entrance if one of those roads, one of the existing roads, gets blocked. I really have concerns over that. The shape of the property is interesting, to say the least. I just don't think that this is the best PUD in the standards that we would put in to be in the best interest of the city.
Okay. A lot of comments. I was trying to take notes. I think I missed a few numbers, but very, very good summary. Other commission comments? All right, I'll dive in. Brian, I've got a few questions for you to help me understand and also for the public's benefit. So this is kind of tangential to what Commissioner Colodi was talking about, which I had no clue what he was going to say, but the thing that has concerned me about this, it's not that I don't, first of all, see a value in a project like this or a product like this. You know, the 55 plus community we heard at the last meeting, I think it was during the testimony, but you know, that this is a product that we probably need more of, and certainly as society ages, we will. But as I mentioned briefly at that meeting, the fundamental concern I have, though, is it just seems out of character with the area just to the, I guess, north of that, all those other areas. And really, Commissioner Colodi just laid it out in kind of numbers here in a way that I wasn't expert enough to do, but just the feel of it on paper versus what I saw. So, but Brian, help me understand. So this is a request to rezone from an existing designation of County A3 Transitional Agriculture and Resource Corridor. So that's what it was zoned under the county. Sometime back, years ago, and you can tell us this, but years ago, it was annexed into the city, and typically now, and I think we may have some today, I can't remember, but we do an annexation and we do all that kind of lockstep. What happened in this case was we annexed it, but we didn't change the zoning at that time, so it's been under existing county zoning. So now that we're bringing it into city zoning, we're applying city zoning, we have to apply, or we should apply, or we, you know, whatever the number, or whatever the right word there is. The zoning that would apply per the comp plan and the future land use designation. And so walk me through that process of kind of going from resource corridor, didn't get annexed in, didn't get rezoned, and now here we are tonight going from traditional agriculture to 132 units, which is a long way from traditional agriculture.
Sure. So you're correct. Normal process now is that zoning would have been assigned at the time that future land use was assigned. So it wasn't back then, so it was left to be developed as PUD, or it could be developed under our standard zoning sections. But given the future land use that was assigned to it at the low-density residential with that particular cap of 132 units, it really is appropriate to develop this property under the PUD. So
even if we went with the straight zoning, we didn't do PUD, if we just did a straight zoning per the future land use, the densities that we're talking about in this project versus that one wouldn't, or this project is proposed under PUD versus that one wouldn't necessarily change, the maximum density.
the maximum density in this case is on the future land use map as a number, which is unusual.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Okay.
that's a maximum. So to your point, is it could be developed at a lower density. That option is available for the commission's consideration in evaluating this PUD rezoning.
Okay. All right, so that's kind of how we got to here. So the one thing that I picked up on among all the things that Commissioner Colodi spoke of was we require this no eave closer than 5 feet, and therefore we've been shown either in separate meetings, but I think it's in our agenda package as well, at least I've been shown, these mock-ups. But what I'm hearing my commissioner say is that may not be possible if we're going to meet all the other requirements in our code, which would be the standard if this PUD was approved. Do you have similar concerns? Have you thought about that and addressed that with the applicant maybe even, or?
Yes, Commissioner's correct. There is a 5-foot limitation that any eave cannot be closer than 5 feet to the adjacent property. So what would likely happen here is the walls would need to be pulled in as far as they need to be to have at least some eave when you have a shingle roof on a typical residential home. Is to your second point, I think we view these units, they're almost like a bungalow style where they're very close but they're still detached. It is a type of housing that is desired here, but there's no doubt, and it's been noted, this is a higher density than our standard zoning districts currently allow in terms of the lot size and the side setback.
Okay. And if we went with straight zone, because the R4 is the kind of straight zoning per comp plan, future land use. So if we went with that, there are some discrepancies between what has been presented and what would be allowed if we went straight zoning. Is that?
That's correct.
Has been described here?
Yes.
Okay. That's all my comments or questions for now.
And
Thank you, Mayor.
Brian?
just for a second,
Hang on, Carrie's got
Jason,
something.
does the applicant or the third-party intervener have any questions for Brian on the limited issues he was just asked about?
Just one comment that's straightforward now. This is Ray Braddock, 529 Versailles Drive, Maitland, Florida, 32751, the applicant. I'd like to just make a comment now as far as why we were here today with the PUD. And then I'd like also an opportunity to sort of respond to some of the questions that the individual commissioners have. And it may be helpful to do it after everybody's had a chance to express what concerns. Maybe I can encapsulate it all in a group of responses.
Well, the
So-
public hearing was closed. Since he did ask staff some questions, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond directly to what he's been asked. But in terms of testimony, this is really commission discussion. So, but we can go ahead, hear it all, and then just focus your comments on what's been stated to Brian.
What's been stated to Brian, okay.
Yeah, we just got to be careful about introducing more testimony because then it kind of opens it all back up. And anyway,
Okay.
so
Well, first of all, the issue of the PUD versus straight zoning. When we started this 4.5, 5 years ago, and some of the staff were here, some of the staff weren't here at that point, because of the
the density that was allocated in the land use change, which was 132 units, and the pluses of a PUD in that you generate tremendous amount of common open space as opposed to what you get in straight zoning development, that it was recommended to us that the best way to utilize this piece of property would be a PUD where there would be large amounts of common open space, and you would cluster the units on a smaller portion of the property, thereby creating this open space, which then becomes an asset to the whole community, as opposed to a bigger yard that is not for everybody's use, is only for the individual owner's use, as well as the market today drives to smaller lots, nice houses on smaller lots with reduced maintenance requirements by the individual homeowners, which enables them to be more community related because they got more time. With it being a 55 and over community, it then allows them to spend time with their neighbors, develop the community feel that you have in a development like this. So that's why we went in the PUD direction.
Okay.
One is some suggestions from staff. Other was because of the way the industry is doing today and the market that's out there. That's why we have brought the project that we believe is the
Okay.
best for this piece of property to the commission.
Okay. Thank you for that response. Commissioner McGurk, comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to bring up again what I brought up last time. Great example of how we have implemented smart growth strategies from straight line zoning and put things into PUDs to be able to get a better project. What he just said was an example of we wanted vast open space, we want to have environmental corridors open, we want to have nature areas, we want all of these things in new development. The only thing was clustering. When you consolidate and put in high density homes, and the construction is high density, so you're not putting infrastructure in all over the entire property. So Commissioner Colodi, I agree. Looking at the points he made were very valid. Looking at the straight line zoning in R4 in R4 district. But that has not necessarily reflected what we have wanted to do in the bigger scheme of things. Now, don't get me wrong. Jake and I have discussed many times our disdain for homes that are right next to each other. There's the front yard, the side yard setbacks. These are consequences that we're going through. We're realizing as we approve these developments based on planning strategies that were supposed to be the answer and solution to the problems of urban sprawl. So we once again find ourselves here having to determine whether or not an applicant can move forward on a project, but we have problems with what we essentially have from a planning perspective long term force them to do, which is high density cluster on top of each other. So we can split hairs over 5 feet or 8 feet, but the point is that's what the high density clustering is, what we wanted. And whether it's 5 feet or 8 feet, when you're 100 feet from the home, it's not going to make much of a difference. I also question, or I like the fact that this project is where it is and offers, for lack of a better word, it's a broad word, affordable housing. But when you look at things like Florida Days with homes 500,000-600,000 and a lot of new development very expensive, where can retirees or 55 older find some kind of affordable housing? Brian, we annexed this into the city from the county?
Yes.
Okay. We continuously request east of 95 and even west of 95 that development projects come into the city so we have control over it. We're not encouraging people to do this. If what they do what we want them to do from the grand scheme of things, which is the smart growth strategies that all the planners wanted to go to 10, 15 years ago. And then they come before us, and we beat them to death on 2 feet here and 1 foot there. We have real problems that we need to address at the commission level to deal with the unintended consequences of what the smart growth strategies have created. I think we've made tremendous leaps forward in some ways. There's some unintended consequences. But I've been talking about these unintended consequences for a number of years now. So front yard setbacks too short. Jake doesn't like side yard, and I don't want to speak for you. I don't put words in your mouth, but he doesn't like the drainage of a side yard setback, as I recall. So there's a number of issues we got to work out. So I get concerned that we don't. This is a good project. It's a needed project in the community, and they have worked with staff extensively to get where they are today for our approval. Thank you, Mayor.
So I have a question of Brian. Can you explain to me what a conceptual development plan is as opposed to the final project?
So it's just that. This is a very graphical one-page rendering of what they have in mind for the site. This doesn't lock into a certain number of units, doesn't lock into ponds. This is their general layout that we expect when we get the final engineering plans to look similar to this, but to be engineered, and some changes would be expected, but it would be substantially similar.
Okay. And is that done at the staff level, or does
Yes.
That, okay.
But that would come back, the plans would back to P&Z and Commission for later
Okay.
approvals.
So what we're talking about now is just conceptual. And so with all of the discussions that we've had, all the testimony that's been heard, then at some point in time, there will be a final project that we will again review and look at, either through P&Z or through us.
Yes, with the qualification that there is specific criteria on things like setbacks and lot sizes, that they meet the minimum, that we would say it complies with the PUD.
Right. But if their setback is 5 foot and yet we require 5 foot from the edge of the eave, naturally that's going to all take into play. Okay, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Colodi, more comments?
Just one comment, Commissioner McGurk, and the audience. I do think it's a great idea, 55 age-restricted housing. There is a need for it. Unfortunately, I'm a little too old for it, but
I don't think there's a maximum.
Yes, my father,
He's too young.
who passed away too late. But one thing you mentioned was affordable housing. The applicants testified that these units are going to be more expensive than Fairgreen, so it's not going to be affordable housing in that aspect. It's my only comments.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead.
my biggest concerns are we have a water body of significance next to it, the Turnbull Creek. So can we get assurances that some of that area can be held in conservation? I heard that uttered.
Yes, that is required. I mean, there is a preservation of the open space in the creek area, and through the stormwater engineering and the plat, that area would be dedicated as conservation, and it would be set aside from development.
I would hope that our city would require extra measures, or even just water management district basics, that we try to protect the creek. I think it is sufficiently far from the creek, but water tends to flow towards that basin. My other really big concern is, can we have assurances from the applicant that the residents who live there's fears are allayed, that they will get no delay in fire rescue or police response? Because that's what the testimony sounded like from residents today. That's a big concern, that egress, ingress.
So that emergency access easement is going to be a condition for development. So if they can't provide that emergency access easement, there will be no development.
Okay. Thank you.
And applicants, if you have any questions for anything Brian just said, no.
Okay. The last thing, and I meant to bring it up earlier, is I genuinely do think they should have to sign a disclosure that they are buying, if this passes and all goes through, that they're buying a property near an airport. Don't call me.
That is important.
I'm not, I'm joking, but I'm not, because we'll hear from them.
Yeah.
All right.
Brian has.
Yes.
So Mayor, that can be included in this PUD as a requirement. I have seen that on other projects.
Oh, you have literally seen that?
It is, you can require disclosures of various things in a PUD.
I said it in jest. I'll defer to the motion maker, but I just let it be stated on the record that if we build homes near an airport, they will call us about the airport noise, even though they just bought a home near an airport. So, all right, we have an item before us, gentlemen. What's your pleasure?
I'm going to take a stab at a motion. There are some conditions that I'm going to want to put on this, Brian. I believe I could do that.
Make sure to talk into that mic so everybody can hear you.
Brian, I believe I can put some conditions on the motion.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion with a couple of conditions. And obviously, if there's others who want to add to that, I'm certainly willing to amend my motion. I am going to add the disclosure of the airport, it being in my district. It is something that I am very tired of hearing over. So I would like any potential home buyer to be disclosed that they are near an airport and that they can expect to hear airplane noise. I also want to add on the rear setback 20 feet along the fairway, and I'm not sure if I'm going to articulate this with enough detail where the location is, but the people along Lake Fairgreen Circle who look across the fairway at this development where the old cemetery is, all the homes along that part of the development, I would like I believe there's a 20-foot rear yard setback, and I would like the first 10 feet from the golf course property line, I guess north, going towards the home being built, to be undisturbed during development. I want all the natural landscaping, vegetation remain there. I would also like to have the project along that development phased as much as possible. I do not want to get calls from the residents along Lake Fairgreen Circle who had to look at a dust bowl for years because it's just simply convenient for the developer to do something all at once. I also want a minimum 6-foot screen. Brian, you can help me with this, I think. What is the proper term for the screening along that as the project until the property gets the CO?
So under the construction phase, we have in our construction site management standards a 6-foot green screen fence along perimeters where there are visibility. So this would qualify for that. But if you wanted to clarify that to make sure that's done here, that's fine.
Yes, I want to clarify that has to remain in place until the properties get the CO. I want that maintained and up as long as possible.
Along the roadway or between that and the golf course?
It's between this private development and the golf course property.
Because our code is between roadways, I think, right, Brian?
It's any perimeter that has visibility.
Oh, okay.
So all those on Lake Fairgreen Circle will be. This is all to benefit those people along Lake Fairgreen Circle who look at across the fairway.
Okay. Was that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Are these conditions acceptable to the applicant?
Do we want to let me clarify that motion, let's get a second, and then we'll make sure. All right, so
Well, what, let me, yeah, because I don't think I actually made the formal motion.
Well, you started off as one, and then we had like questions, and so do you want to restate it, or I can restate it, and you can just do it however you want to do
Yeah,
it?
I'm going to make a motion to approve with the added conditions of disclosure to each buyer of the airport, maintain the natural vegetation until CO on the 10 feet from the golf course property to the applicant's property, the 10 feet between half of that 20-foot rear yard setback. A green screen on the construction project until it's complete, 6-foot minimum, and phasing of that process of that part of the project where the Lake Fairgreen Circle residents are impacted by their view.
Okay. I had a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Okay. I have one question for the motion maker. You specified the natural vegetation until CO. That seemed intentional. Is the intention that you're just not wanting to bind the property owners up after that? I mean, because wouldn't they potentially then clear it and create the same problem?
The key is for the developer not to make that determination. Each individual property owner will buy the property, essentially move in, and then make a determination of what on their property landscape they want or don't want. So basically what I'm preventing is the developer from coming in and simply clear cutting, which is convenient for them, and then putting up little sticks for landscaping. So that last 10 feet of all the natural vegetative landscape has to be maintained until the certificate of occupancy is issued.
Okay. Got it. Brian, again on the motion, the phased as much as possible, do we need any clarity on that, or can we just give staff some discretion on kind of managing that, or any?
We would need to amend the MDA to talk about phasing. If it's a phase 1, phase 2. Brian, any input on phasing possibilities?
I think the phasing, as I understand it, is more of you don't want to see the entire site cleared and left for 6 months, a year with no activity, so that the building construction closely follows with the site clearing.
Correct. In other words, the phase of this particular area that I'm talking about, which affects those who live along Lake Fairgreen Circle, that is done at one time. That phasing is done so it's not piecemealed, clear cut. One house might go up 6 months later, a year later, another house might go up, or more importantly, it gets clear cut, some infrastructure put down, and it sits there for years during a downturn in the economy. So I want staff to figure, as much to the extent possible, what can be done to prevent that from happening.
I think we have enough to understand that when we do review the engineering plans to perhaps create phasing as needed, that phases would not be released for clearing until they reach certain milestones.
I mean, I'm not a developer, but you can pre-sell, and then you start the project once you've pre-sold a certain, the units or something.
And we've made changes to our land codes now that, and I think Commissioner Colodi or Saxon brought up about an area has to be either finished developing or reseeded and restored within a certain period. That's existing code that would apply to this. Is that correct? Yeah. So we've gotten some protections on the books in general about that. So that's good to know in this case. Yeah. Just that word to the extent possible. Like that's already being. That's already an issue in this exact.
I said that, and I thought to myself, oh, right.
Okay. I had a motion. Had a second. Yes.
So, Brian, I thought when we had the testimony of the hearing, they said they were going to leave the 20 feet close to the golf course. They were going to leave that natural until they actually went into the landscaping process. I don't seem to see that now.
I'd have to ask them as far as what they represented. The I mean, the homes have a 20-foot rear setback. I think leaving 10 feet is reasonable, that wouldn't need to be graded with the mass clearing and infrastructure, and then you could leave it up to the homeowner. I think 20 would be very difficult to do.
Okay, all right. Because I thought that was dealt with in the PUD.
I don't believe there is a 20-foot buffer. There are buffers on the other aspects of the property, but specifically on the lake, on the golf course frontage, there is not.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Commissioner Colodi?
Just a general comment. This goes back to our old way of thinking and how we should approve things. We didn't follow procedures back then. We put it in the form of a maximum number of homes that can be built on the property. I agree with the concept of the 55 and older community. I just think that this particular development it's not too dense, but it's just not designed in the best way it could have been. I think that the property owners were a little bit misled when they were given that 132 units, and they thought that's it, and they tried to make a project that fits it. I just think it should be a little different, that's all. And I think that where we dropped the ball in the past, we should not continue to do that.
I have great respect for your expertise on this, and also for Commissioner McGurk's comments and his background. And I'm sitting right in the middle, and I've been through a few of these, and there's a distinct possibility it may ride on my vote. So I hear everything you just said. So I guess my question for you is, in light of what Commissioner McGurk said, do you feel like, I don't like pulling the rug. I want to make changes. I mean, we just talked about one we've changed where it said, hey, this didn't work before. We've made changes now that future development has to have this in place, this reseeding agreement. That's a minor thing, but we've made all these changes. So, what is your response to that of, like, this was started a long time ago. There's been a lot of things done based on the representations that and understandings, I guess, that were in place at the time. Does that feel right or fair by the landowner versus also trying to do what's right for us? So this, that's where I'm torn, struggling.
I believe every landowner should be able to use their property to the fullest and greatest extent. That is maximum allowed by our zoning ordinances. I feel that when we get into some of these details, like the overhangs and wetlands and buffers, that there's probably not going to be 132 units out there. I don't think it was predicated, the original development, on a 40-foot lot, and there's no recommendation that be in there. So if approved, I look forward to the actual subdivision part of it, where off-track improvements are discussed and the easements discussed and all of those things. But I just feel that the property owner may have been somewhat misled by thinking, I can sell 132 units. And that has led to some design standards that are not in the best interest of the community. That's all. I don't know if that clarifies your question.
And do you think Commissioner Hartman's point earlier was, this is conceptual and there's other steps to this, but we do lock in some things now. You just indicated you feel as we go through this process there may be some other bites at the apple if there's elements that, in your professional opinion, could be better. Are there other chances to make that improvement through, or do you think we're going to let the ship sail too far?
If I had to boil it down to certain aspects of this, we're approving side yards, we're approving lot widths that are not in the best interest of the town. I look forward to it, if it's approved, to discussing those things further. Now that they know they can't build a 30-foot wide house, maybe it'll change their thinkings, but we'll see if that comes about.
All right. Well, let's see how this goes. I had a motion with a lot of things in it. I had a second. City attorney had a question for the applicant. I don't know that it's actually relevant because it's it is what it is. They can, if they don't want to accept the terms, they can just not do anything, but I'm willing to let you ask it if you want to.
Correct. They had nodded their head previously. Do you agree to these conditions that Commissioner McGurk placed? I see one head nod, and if you could come up here.
Just to keep it as close to a yes or no as possible, I ask.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner McGurk's
Okay.
recommendation or conditions of approval.
Thank you. All right. With that, City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
No.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. That item is adopted. Item 8B, C, and D is related to property at 345 Corbin Park Road. There's two sets. Let's see, there are 2 second readings of public hearings. We're going to do all 3 of these together. City Attorney, if you'll read these a second time by title only.
Ordinance number 121, an ordinance annexing into the city of New Smyrna Beach 2.9 plus or minus acres of property located south of State Road 44, east of Corbin Park Road, north of Patty Road, addressed as 345 Corbin Park Road, providing for redefining boundaries of the city, designating the property within Commission Zone 4, providing for public hearing, providing for required filings, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 221, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the comprehensive plan, changing the future land use designation of 2.9 plus or minus acres of land located south of State Road 44, east of Corbin Park Road, north of Patty Road, addressed as 345 Corbin Park Road, from Volusia County urban medium intensity to city medium density residential, providing for amendment of the associated comprehensive plan maps to show the area incorporated into the city, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 3-21, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach rezoning 2.9 plus or minus acres of property located south of State Road 44, east of Corbin Park Road, north of Patty Road, addressed as 345 Corbin Park Road, from Volusia County R4A urban single-family residential airport overlay to City R2A single-family residential airport overlay zoning district, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
All right, we'll now conduct the second readings and quasi-judicial public hearings on these ordinances. We'll first hear from the city. Do you have a report, Mr. Mathon, briefly?
Yes, sir. The property owners are requesting a overall annexation application. It is about 2.85 acres. It is located south of State Road 44, east of Corbin Park Road, and north of Patty Road. Staff has recommended the City Commission to approve the overall annexation application, including the future land use changes and rezoning.
Thank you. It's a public hearing. Any members of the public wish to speak on this item? Is he headed that way or this way? Okay. Oh, he's leaving. All right. I see no members of the public. We'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1-21?
So move.
Second.
With no discussion, City Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion on ordinance 2-21?
Motion to approve ordinance 02-21.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
And do I have a motion to approve ordinance 3-21?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes. Thanks,
Thank
Bob. All right, item 8E. Second reading would amend our land development regs related to temporary signage. City Attorney, read this a second time by title only.
Ordinance number 421, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the land development regulations, Article 6, Section 60412, signs to revise banner requirements, providing for codification, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
All right. Brian, you got a report on this one?
Just briefly, this is not changing requirements. This is just removing a permit requirement for a new business that wants to put up a banner sign, takes away the time and money, which is urgent to get a permit, and change the wording a little bit at the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Staff recommends approval. Here for any questions.
Planning and zoning recommended approval
Yes.
unanimously.
7-0.
7-0, thank you. It's a public hearing. Any members of the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, closing the public hearing. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 4-21?
Question first, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Brian, banner consists of what?
It's typically like a vinyl material, some type of, temporary. It's a sign that's put up for now open type things for new businesses, not permanent structures.
Does that include flags?
It does not.
It does not.
It's up to 32 square feet, so it could be any orientation of that, like a, 10 by 3 would fit, 10 by 3.2, I guess.
Can we require a maximum of days it's allowed to be up?
We have a 45-day period that it's allowed to be up. Or I'm sorry, excuse me. It's a 30-day period it can be up.
45.
45,
45.
sorry.
And it has to be within the first 45 days of it opening.
Yeah, first 45 days. So you get your BTR, which is usually last, and then they have 45 days to take advantage of this without a permit.
So it's like a grand opening or now open or something, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve 04-21.
Second.
On a motion and a second, any other discussion? I don't want to rush on any of these items. If y'all want to jump in, feel free, but I'm just moving quick. Kelly, if you would call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Sacks?
No.
Commissioner Clody?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owen?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have some first readings. City attorney will read items A, B, and C.
Ordinance number 521, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach granting a non-exclusive franchise to Creech Enterprises, Inc., DBA Southeast Containers to provide construction and demolition debris removal services within the City of New Smyrna Beach, outlining franchisees' duties, providing terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 0621, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach granting a non-exclusive franchise to Gel Recycling LLC to provide construction and demolition debris removal services within the City of New Smyrna Beach, outlining franchisees' duties, providing terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. Ordinance number 0721, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach granting a non-exclusive franchise to Fence Service, Inc., DBA FSI Roll-Off Containers to provide construction and demolition debris removal services within the City of New Smyrna Beach, outlining franchisees' duties, providing terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. All three of those public hearings will be on February 9th, 2021.
Thank you. Boards and commissions, I have none. Is that right? We don't need to do the pension thing, right? You're bringing that back to us?
Yep, there'll be a
Okay.
text amendment before we.
Got it, okay. All right, mayor and commission reports. We'll begin with the vice mayor and then work our way this way. Vice mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not of the understanding how far we can go. Commissioner McGurk had mentioned that we had had numerous discussions about setbacks, side setbacks, and I wonder how far can we take our future land regulations to make those mandatory minimums, not have 5-foot setbacks, that they be 7 or 8 foot. I understand where I live it's 7.5 feet, I think. But it's like you had said, I agree with you. You don't want to walk between two houses in mud, because if they don't put up rain gutters, and even with rain gutters, where's that water going to go? So we're getting to be like row houses. Is this how we continually want to grow? And it's deleterious for a lot of reasons, but because there's very little space, you're going to have that mushy grass. It's going to be proverbially, I can't say it, it's going to be always wet. You're going to hear everybody's goings on, from one house to the other. I know I've lived in developments before, and you're going to hear air conditioners. So I was wondering if, we can set a minimum and change that minimum in the city. I know this was
obtained tonight in a PUD. They were granted 5 feet. But I'd rather not see that. So is there any way that we can go forward and explore doing what we had set out to do?
Just in our standard zoning districts, the minimum is 7.5, and it goes up from there. So this was, PUD, as we discussed tonight, it proposed 5. 5 is not that unusual. We do have them in other PUDs. It is a challenge to manage the drainage. It has to be done well by both homeowners, or you can create problems with the material on the ground, how you gutter the roof line, where you discharge. So if not actively managed, it can certainly be a problem. I would consider that when granting anything less than the 7.5.
We should require gutters.
Yes.
Can we amend
And while I have the floor, question again for Brian. Sorry, I'm confused tonight's medication. This project will have its stormwater go to ponds and held in the ponds. But ultimately, those ponds, that water blends with underground aquifer, correct?
Ponds treat to the standards that apply, and then if they overflow or discharge, they go to receiving waters downstream.
And they can also seep, possibly?
Yes, they can percolate.
Okay. Yeah, those were my concerns, for our city as we go forward into this next decade is how we're going to look, how dense are we going to be, how livable are we going to be, are our fire trucks going to be able to get down the road? Really important stuff. And I just hope from the conceptual phase that we vote on, and I'm always, I'll be blunt with you, I'm always concerned. We're voting on a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Brian assures us that the concept and what you actually get have to be kind of similar, kind of, or not.
They need to. If it's a lot different, that has to be brought back to you as a PUD amendment.
Okay. Thank you. My only other comment on that, and I wish we would have a workshop on it, how we treat PUDs. But my only other comment would be right now, referring to COVID, some people are starting to realize through friends, unfortunately, family, people are actually contracting the disease. I'm wearing 2 masks. That's my choice. I would hope that our city's mandate is upheld, that even my colleagues wear their masks. I'm just urging you as my friends, as my colleagues, that we sit together and that we set the example. And I know it's been hard. It's been very hard, but we're getting close. I feel it. I haven't gotten my first shot yet. I can't get on. But we don't know what this disease will morph into. And so I urge everybody to just put on the mask when you go into a store, when you're not socially distant. Wash your hands every time you come in. Really simple things we learned as children. And we'll get through this together, because goes beyond party. It goes beyond ideology. It cuts to the heart of America. If we don't get rid of this COVID, we won't get our economy back to where we want it, and I want it back very soon. So thank you for your patience.
Okay. Good comments. If I can jump in, you may be about to say the same thing, but I just totally forgot, or I don't want to forget, rather. Brian, could we, in a case like that, could we require, or even in code, could we require something where, like if you went below a certain level of setback, like gutters are required, or like some special drainage considerations is?
Yes, you can, and this one, I think, our engineering will require it.
Okay.
At final
Good.
engineering for proper yard drainage.
Yeah, we didn't attach it as a condition, but I think if they end up with a problem, we're all going to look disfavorably on it. So as we go through the rest of the process, maybe one of us can remember to try to tack it on somewhere. All right, you're up.
Jake, I want to respond to what you said about it, some of the setbacks. So, the irony is, I think we've been here the longest. We've both been complaining about the same thing for a long time. You may recall, you and I requested a joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Board to deal with the issue. We were lined up all along this back wall. I think it was the same year you had your reelection.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what seems to ring a bell. How much happened in the meeting? In my opinion, the whole point of the meeting got lost. So I was recently asked to fill out by staff for the strategic planning this long list of number 1 through 8 or 1 through 10. It's one of those lists that gets very difficult to start once you get past number 3.
Yeah.
How much time have we spent on strategic planning and not ever has there been buffers and setbacks in? So my point is, we act like it's a really big deal, but when we actually go out into the community, elicit information, and we put together, and staff spends days and days worth of time, those things never show up on the list. There's some things to me that are so trivial on that list. Then you and I are talking about setbacks, and we're discussing whether or not we approve a development project. These are big issues to me. But they've never gone anywhere because there doesn't seem to be that level of interest. So I don't know if it's just you and I don't know how much. So it's just something to ponder, something to wonder. Is it truly an issue? Because I don't have people calling me all the time about it. So I don't know. But that's my point. I want to bring up a little history there. And it's not in any of the visioning. We spend a lot of time talking about all kinds of things. But I don't know.
No, I agree with you, but then you go, what is the alternative? Florida-friendly landscaping in between? We don't know, but
yeah.
if there really is no interest, I would still like to not allow
I agree.
Right, in PUDs.
We set a long list of priorities. Heck, I just finished filling out this long number of priorities, and we're talking anyway about all kinds of everything else under the sun except those kinds of issues which challenged us tonight, which people are passionate about. So I just, that's on us.
I know. Point well taken.
Also on a note that Jake made, I hope everybody be safe out there. This virus is everywhere. I can't believe how many people I know, either directly or indirectly, that have this thing. So the holidays are paying, you're paying your due coming now for all the stuff people did with the holidays. Please keep the masks on. That is the single biggest thing. And I see the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, in the next 3 to 6 months with the vaccine. So stay safe and get that vaccine. Thank you, Mayor.
Sharma. So as we're going through this process, we kind of came to the realization that this pathway on the North Causeway kind of got overlooked or missed. So can we charge staff with maybe, as they're mowing, as they're out there, if they see something that could be a potential probably next year, that it just gives you a heads up, and that we can think about that as far as budget purposes. I agree with Commissioner Colodi. It's not truly an emergency type of thing, but it was something that needed to be done because of the risk part of it, in my opinion. So, but if it got overlooked last budget cycle, I'm sure because we're the ones who are getting the complaints and not through city staff. So just as they're out there mowing, the guys are out there mowing and doing the streets and stuff, that they'll just take a heads up and say, hey, what about this? I certainly would appreciate it. I'm of great concern about the area that up in Hidden Lakes. I mean, we have a small subdivision up there that has a limited access because of the railroad. It kind of concerns me that the county or somebody earlier in this whole process didn't think about that as they were permitting these lots on a second means of egress. I wonder how many more we may have out there. I don't know, truly, was it an issue? I mean, it's happened once or twice in 10 years. Jake probably knows if you need to get there, you'll get there, even if it's by foot. So as far as fire rescue goes. But I just wonder if there's anything else. I don't know if staff kind of looks at that when they review some of these PUDs or some of these subdivisions. You know, is that a part of the process?
Certainly is in this case.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was, from the get-go, it was a challenge. I don't think there's a lot of remaining property to be developed in that area. The solution would be a second rail crossing, maybe an emergency, non-public. That still could be a possibility here. So it's definitely a known problem.
Yeah, you know, just as we go through these things and as people talk about annexations or development, those are kind of long-term things that maybe we need to look at, and maybe that's where we need to put some infrastructure in prior to the first permitting and stuff like that. You know, it gives me some great concerns. And again, like Commissioner Sachs says, I have a physician friend who works in Edgewater, and everybody in Volusia County is COVID positive, according to her, and it affects everybody. And 67% of them are asymptomatic, so they're walking without. So, you know, encourage everyone to use safe practices and be safe. Hopefully, the end is close. I don't think it's as close as a lot of people are hoping for, but I think hopefully it's close. And that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Colodi.
I have two things. One's a good thing, one isn't a good thing. The first one is we have such a parking mess in this town that we're really not doing anything to correct. We have structural problems in our parking codes. First of all, there's a parking reduction allowed down along Flagler. If you put in a facility, you're required 50 parking spaces by code. You only have to put in 25. It's most ridiculous. We should get rid of that provision. Here we are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy parking spaces when somebody else should be doing it. We have an obligation to try to get it and provide it. Doesn't mean we have to pay for it. Right now we got a sort of a pay-for-park method where some people, if they build something, they can basically buy unrestricted parking spaces in our own lots. Is that really fair to the other merchants and everybody else down there? There's one person that pays a lot of money and has for years for a development he hopes to have, but he keeps paying. Even so, we've got to come up with a more broad-based method of collecting monies to provide community parking. People talk about a parking garage. Where are we going to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars? We're not planning for that yet. Some people think it's coming. Probably is. We got our loading zone issue, which nobody likes. We put them in. They're not used. People get summons for it. They don't care. They just pay it. And yet the problem is still there. I get people that call me up and say, I got a ticket. I parked in it kind of by mistake. I was there for a minute. I get people, they call me up and says, I didn't see the sign. The curb was dirty. I didn't know I shouldn't park there. We've got to take more drastic steps into making improved spaces. I know we're going to look into this in the hopefully near future as to what to do down there. Additionally, restaurant requirements. I've been told from more than one source that there's been conversions into restaurants which have to have a minimum of 150 seats, therefore very large parking requirements, and there's been conversions from general retail to parking that have not provided the right parking spaces. We did a big parking study a year ago. We updated an older study. Yet we didn't go out in the field to see what people were really doing. We didn't have the manpower to do it. So there's got to be a way we have to control some of these type of uses. You look next to us here. The river deck was approved. There's not enough parking for it, even though it meets our ordinances. So what do we have? They have valet parking, and they drive them out. They park them on the streets, in spaces, in front of the marina, where we have liveaboard people there that we don't say they have an assigned space, yet they expect to be able to park somewhere near their boat. We have a lot of these. We really got to spend some time, as much as it pains me to say it, but maybe we got to hire a consultant using parking fees to really look into this. I like to solve things in-house, but I think it's totally beyond us. For 2 years now, I've been trying to get it straightened out, and due to limitations on staff and just general 50 like it, 50 don't like it, we got to take a stand, and we're not taking one. We really have to do that. Second thing, which I view as a positive thing, at the request of one of our local attorneys, historic preservation came up. I know that we have a brand new charter that says we got to deal with historic preservation. I know there's a certain group in town that really wants to get it done and to implement it through ordinance changes. We got to make that a priority. I met with, at the attorney's request, I met with members of our museum. I met with members of the National Park Service concerning historic and archaeological sites. They are willing to give us help and possibly even money to try to make some sense out of our ordinances, which we know need help. They came up with a unique plan that some things they do is they want to create around Turnbull, which I think we should really focus on, to things called probability zones, where you think artifacts might be found, where you think people would like to go and see it, and they will help us set those up. They have a lot of programs, one of which I found really unique. You go out to the sugar mill ruins, you go out to the what's called the old fort, you look at it and you go, yep, there it is. There are programs that they will set us and help us run where you can take your phone, which everybody has these days, and you can point it at that thing and it will show you what might have been there at one time. Create great interest. This would develop that word that I don't like, tourism. It would develop historic tourism with people that come, stay, and spend money. That's what we should be looking for. I'd like to see us concentrate on that. I have no specific proposals, but I'm going to keep working on it. I'm also having a meeting with the Nature Conservancy, which may be able to provide, I might have mentioned this in the past, but they've been using the COVID as a reason not to meet with me. But they're going to do that, and they might be able to offer us expertise on the proper way to preserve those lands and possibly do some preservation that can be used by the general public or residents. Also, we recently purchased a property right on 44 that's loaded with the old debris we don't like to see. We should try to get some work to clearing them out. We've heard numerous complaints from the Corbin Park people that causes flooding in the neighborhood. We're doing a study on it. Perhaps we could dedicate some of our stormwater funds to a cleaning project of that channel so the water can get under the bridge. So those are the two things I just want to talk about. I'm not going to dwell on anything that went on today. We can move on.
Hear, hear. Well said. I like it when Mike gets passionate. Okay, so I had two things. I added one. I have to agree with you, Mike. I feel like there are issues that we talk about when they come up, and it's not that we haven't taken action, because I mean we've tried some stuff and we implemented loading zones. We're trying, and so we got to refine that. But what I've seen so far is when it comes to larger scale, like more comprehensive solutions, where this body, not staff, not the public, not a private enterprise, not whatever, but this body, these 5 people up here, whoever they are at any given point, someone eventually is going to have to take a comprehensive look and then a stand that will be unpopular with some people at the time if we want to move forward on some of these items. If we want to resolve some of the boat parking issues we have, if we want to resolve some of the parking issues we have, and the fundamental challenge becomes like, is it an if you build it, they will come? You know, if you add parking, does it draw people in? Or is it that we should accommodate for the people that are already here? And that's some of the fundamental things. I happen to agree with you. We spend a lot of money on consultants to do studies that we then never act on because, again, the public will becomes, you know, hey, it's a 50-50. And so it's hard to, you know, the easiest thing to do in those cases. See, some of these things that are applicant driven, we're forced to vote on. None of us even want to vote sometimes. Like we're all a little bit like, hey, if I could opt out, I would, but we have to vote. So we're forced to an action. These other issues, there's no applicant driving us to an action, so what I see is we tend to just punt it. We tend to punt it to another workshop, another study, another whatever. We churn staff through another cycle of that because we don't want to stare residents in the face, 50 of which will agree, and 49 of which will disagree, and 51 of which will agree, and that's tough. But that's also not leadership. And so, you know, I'm hopeful. I thought we missed some opportunities on with boat ramps and exploring some stuff. I mean, where that last landed, the Marine Discovery Center is waiting on us to tell them that we would be interested if they were able to obtain permission. If we would be interested in possibly using some of their parking they have available as overflow parking for our boat facility. So we haven't even begun that we don't even know if that is a possibility. And yet, if you talk to the average citizen, the first thing they will tell you is, why don't y'all do that? I've heard that so many times, it's maddening. And yet, we can't even get off of, let's at least let the Marine Discovery Center go ask permission. And, you know, so it's frustrating for me. It's got to be frustrating for citizens. You know, I don't give up my Tuesday nights until 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, as it may be in some nights, to just debate issues, punt it to another workshop, and then move on. So I'm with you, Commissioner Colodi, and that's not a slight to anyone else. It's tough. I mean, I've punted issues as well, I'm sure. So I'm not casting barbs at anyone else, but I do think some of these things we have to start at least forcing ourselves to a vote. Some of these things deserve a vote. Some of these things deserve an up or down. Parking garages. It's a third rail in this community. But I think we're approaching a point where we have to say as an elected body, yep, we're for it or against it, not we're just going to dance around that issue the whole time. We're just going to dance so that nobody can quite pin us down on that because it may hurt our reelection chances. That's just not how I think we should operate. Two other things I had, just as a complete aside, but I was talking to someone in Port Orange. They just approved the panhandling ordinance that we had talked about sometime. I think it's the same attorney. Don't quote me on that. I think it is. But their out-the-door price was only $35K. And they're a bigger city than we are. So I know we had $60K when we were talking. $60K was a number that I had in my head at least. So it may just be worth checking as we're talking about homelessness in general and all these other issues. And I know panhandling and homelessness are not one and the same, but they are part of the same population, and there is some overlap. But if that number is more like 25 or 30K, if there's any kind of pro rata for, you know, they're a bigger city than us, then I would think we'd be at least somewhere in the 25 to 30K. If that's more like it, that just may be a different decision than the 60K was. So I just wanted to put that on the city attorney's radar. The other thing was, we talked about this last meeting, the building fund. So again, a little bit of a third rail. We know most people in our community have their strong opinion on building. But the reality is, as a practical matter, we have a building fund. It has a certain account balance. As of this point in time, there's an account balance. I don't know what that number is, but it's up there. We've used it for some things. I believe, and our city attorney and our city staff have been extremely careful on what we use that on. Because I've tried to use it on stuff that they said, nope, we're not going to do that. So they have been extremely careful. So I'm very confident in what we have used it on is attributable to building needs. However, I think as we sit here, there's some concern over the balance of that fund. And there's two things we can do. We can wait and let somebody else come and talk to us, and it will take a different avenue, and there'll be lawyers involved. or we can proactively as a city address this head on and say, we have to deal with this per state statute. We have to deal with this. We got a couple different ways we can get to it. None of them are going to be pretty. They may be time consuming on staff, but I think we have to start showing some good faith on that. Because I can tell you, I think the state legislature is watching. I think there's some builders that are watching. I think the state legislature is watching. I don't want to be found out of compliance with that, because I think if we're not showing any good faith actions and other people get involved that have, JD after their name, it becomes a whole different scenario. So I would challenge the commission that we should probably ask staff to take some action on that, and it should probably be a priority. And I know we have 1,000 priorities, and I hate to add another one to the list, but if we don't make this a priority, someone else will make it a priority for us, and it'll be more expensive that way. That's my 2 cents. So I would ask commission's consensus to give, I'll just say Khalid, and then he can direct as necessary, but Khalid and Carrie and their requisite staff to begin looking at this issue and making good faith efforts to bring the commission a proposal that will bring us in compliance with the state statute.
Well, I'm not against that, but I'm not aware of what you're alluding to. I thought we talked about doing something with permits, right? And we're talking about a plan for the building department purchasing some land and possibly a building there someday. So I'm not following the conversation.
So,
to the severity of the extent to which you're.
And I don't want to write the case for anybody, but city attorney can probably brief you. But basically there's state statutes that says you have to look at, is it operating expenses or revenues, trailing revenues, or I forget exactly what it is. I haven't talked about it in a while. But there's a state statute that says you've got to look at expenditures and/or revenues of your building department over a certain time, and you can't hold funds in excess of some percentage of that. I forget the exact numbers, and I think if you run them 2 times, so double, yeah. So I think if you run the numbers on where we're sitting, we have some concern. We have some exposure there that I think we should address head on.
So do you want to? I mean, I had no problem meeting with staff and getting briefed on it, but
Yeah.
how do you want to?
I think maybe that's the first step. Maybe we say, staff needs to at least brief everyone and say, here's where we think here's where it is, and here's some here's some options of how we should address it. At least, or talk to us each individually, and then we can talk about what we come back with as a commission.
Sure.
Okay. All right. But they will have to spend some time to do that. I don't want to give, I'll come to them. I just don't want to give staff, I didn't want to give staff that direction. I wanted us to give staff that direction, because they will spend some time to get ready for us. Yes, Commissioner Colodi.
It should be revenue neutral. That's just common sense. Now, if they made it a law, that's fine. Basically, you do that by adjusting your inspection fees. We've accumulated money. We're taking steps to try to get back to neutral by lowering our fees for the next 6 months. I'm all in favor of us doing a study to see an analysis, not a study, to see how we would become revenue neutral once the 6-month period is over. So plenty of lead time to do that, but it should be done.
We got to at least be able to say we've taken good faith steps. But to your point, and I've said this to others, that the level of service of we've talked a lot about the level of service of the road department, and we're making great strides in improving that by adding staff, technology, investments in equipment, space, etc. So that, to me, has been a little bit of why I've wanted to wait on this, because we don't know what that number really should be as an operating expense, because I think it's been artificially deflated in the past. And so I think we're getting to the point we can now look forward and say, this is what is going to be, so that we can make sure we're in compliance with state statute moving forward, and then staff can make a recommendation as to, here's how we can get to that right spot. There's a couple of ways we can attack it. So, all right, staff will talk to each of us about that more in detail. Eventually it'll come back for us here. And that was all that I had. Next item is city manager report.
You have the reports, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions on the city manager of his report? Hearing none. City clerk report.
No report, sir.
And city attorney. No report from city attorney. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.